Chapter 263. I don't know where these two people came from, but they wanted to pick the Chinese wisteria flowers. When I saw them, I tried to stop them. Who knew that not only did this woman not admit her mistake, but she became even more arrogant and scolded me. The moment they saw Madame Qin, Shi Fengming and Su Qing, or had expected that the young woman they had met yesterday was Shi Fengju's wife. Thus, they weren't surprised to see her. Sangwon already knew this, so she wasn't surprised to see them. Is this my sister-in-law? I'm sorry I offended you. Please forgive me. Shi Fengming quickly went forward and cupped his hands. Su Qing also quickly went forward and said with an apologetic smile, Young mistress, I'm sorry. I was just angry that this sister-in-law spoke too harshly. It's fine if she scolded me, but she kept mentioning the second master, saying things like, outsiders and unruly. I couldn't help but argue with her. I saw that the Chinese wisteria flowers bloomed beautifully, so I couldn't help but pick a bunch. It's my fault. I apologize to you. As Su Qing spoke, she bowed elegantly to Sangwon. Young mistress, it's not like that. This woman, Madame Qin, Sangwon stopped her with a smile and said, all right, it's just a bunch of flowers. Since you've picked them, so be it. Go to the kitchen and see what's prepared for lunch. The second young master wants to stay for lunch today. Madame Qin heaved a sigh of relief and nodded. Sangwon smiled apologetically to Shi Fengming and said, I'm really sorry. Madame Qin didn't know that it was you, so she offended you. It's all my fault. When I saw that the Chinese wisteria flowers bloomed well, I told them to take care of it carefully. Who knew that she would be too careful? I didn't expect things to be so coincidental. I apologized to the second young master. Please don't take it to heart. Please don't take it to heart. When Shi Fengming saw that Sangwon didn't ask Madame Qin to apologize to him and Su Qing, he felt a little uncomfortable. When he saw that she wanted to apologize personally, he didn't dare to accept it. He quickly dodged and said with a smile, Don't be like this, sister-in-law. How can I accept it? It's just a small matter. Sister-in-law, don't mind it. Speaking of which, it's our fault. The people here don't know me. Even if we want to walk around the garden, we should ask a servant to lead the way. Sangwon smiled. It's good that second young master doesn't mind. Just now, he had already ordered someone to inform them that the second young master was here, so this kind of thing would not happen again. Second young master must have been out for a long time. Let's talk in the hall. Sister-in-law, please. Shi Fengming smiled and raised his hand. When Su Qing saw that Sangwon had finally mentioned something about her, it meant that she wasn't disgusted with her. She stepped forward and said with a smile, Young mistress, you're really polite and know how to talk. It's really comforting to hear your words. Speaking of which, we can be considered to be fated. Otherwise, we wouldn't have met yesterday. Yesterday, when I saw young mistress, I felt a sense of familiarity and couldn't help but want to get closer to you. That's why I shamelessly borrowed a cup of tea from young mistress. If it were someone else, I wouldn't have done that. I didn't expect that we would meet again today. Speaking of which, we were rude yesterday. Young mistress, you're a magnanimous person. Please don't take it to heart. An accident isn't worth anything. You're too polite. Sangwon smiled. When Su Qing saw that she had responded to her words, she was even more delighted. She quickly stepped forward to support her arm and praised her with a smile. I knew that young mistress was an extremely magnanimous person. If young mistress doesn't mind, how about I accompany you to chat and relieve your boredom in the future? What do you like to do on a daily basis? Sangwon leaned to the side without batting an eyelid and said with a smile, Young mistress, you're a guest. How could I dare to accept such words? The weather is hot, but I don't like to go out. I'm mostly cooling off in the garden. By the way, second young master, I've already asked the butler to look for eldest young master. I don't know when he'll be back. Is it urgent that you're looking for him? Sangwon turned to Shi Fengming and asked with a smile. She really didn't want to exchange pleasantries with Su Qing. Shi Fengming hurriedly smiled and said, It's nothing urgent. I'm just here to see eldest brother and sister-in-law. Eldest brother has important matters to attend to first. It's the same if I see him when I'm free. That's good. Sangwon nodded with a smile. Su Qing could also tell that Sangwon wasn't willing to get close to her. She thought that it would be fine as long as Sangwon didn't hate her. More haste, less speed. She couldn't be too eager for quick success and instant benefits. Thus, she smiled and retreated quietly. They went to the parlor and sat down to talk. They chatted about their daily lives and asked about the recent situation. Shi Fengming laughed and said that he hadn't congratulated eldest brother and sister-in-law yet. Sangwon also thanked him with a smile. Su Qing interjected a few words from time to time. Shi Fengming was happy to see this, and Sangwon couldn't refute him. However, everything changed when Shi Fengju returned. When Shi Fengju heard from the butler that his second brother had come and brought along a well-dressed lady, he immediately understood what was going on. He immediately rushed back with the butler with a black face. On the way, he scolded the butler and blamed him for letting that woman in. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He instructed the butler to ask the servants to wash the floor and throw away everything that the woman had touched. The butler had never seen him so angry. How would he dare to have any objections? No matter what, he hurriedly agreed and couldn't help but feel aggrieved. The eldest young master was the master, and so was the second young master. How could he not let the woman in when the master brought her in? Even if he did, how could the second young master listen to him? The butler stole a glance at the eldest young master. He thought that it was inconvenient for the eldest young mistress to stop him in the residence, let alone a servant like him. The eldest young master didn't dare to flare up at the eldest young mistress. Madame Qin was also furious. She waited at the second door for Shi Fengju to return. When she saw him return, she went forward to greet him and found a topic. She quickly shifted the topic to Su Qing. And complained to Shi Fengju about what had happened in the garden with exaggerated details. I've lived for so long, but I've never seen such a mean and vulgar woman. I don't know what kind of vixen tricks she used to seduce the second young master. If the eldest young mistress hadn't rushed over, she would have pulled out the Chinese wisteria. I was so angry that I tried to reason with her, but she mocked me. She said that I was a servant and didn't deserve to talk about her. Servant? Shi Fengju sneered. She's just a slut. Madame Qin, don't lower yourself to her level. Madame Qin's words were like adding oil to the fire. Shi Fengju stepped into the hall angrily, and the three of them stood up. Shi Fengju's expression was very ugly. Su Qing's heart tightened for no reason, and she subconsciously hid behind Shi Fengming. Shi Fengming was also a little baffled. It seemed that the anger was directed at him. But wasn't everything fine last night? How had he offended him again? He wanted to go forward and greet him. His lips moved, but he couldn't say it. He couldn't take a step forward either. Fengju, you're back. Sangwon went forward with a smile and held his arm. She pinched it gently and looked at him gently. Sangwon sighed secretly. She had expected that Shi Fengju would be angry when he heard that Su Qing had entered the manor, but she hadn't expected him to be so angry. Su Qing was really something. She had seduced someone's son and left his parents and wife to run away from home. The Shi family couldn't wait to skin her alive and break her bones. Yet, she still had the nerve to come here. Fengju, second young master, is here. Let's sit down and talk slowly, Sangwon said gently. Shi Fengju tilted his head and looked at her gently. He patted her hand gently and said, I have something to tell second brother. Wanyang, go back to your room first. It was good that she didn't get involved in the matters between the two brothers. Sangwon nodded and said with a smile, Then I'll go back first. Fengju, let's talk things over. Don't be anxious. After all, we're family. Okay, go ahead. Shi Fengju nodded. Sangwon smiled and let go of him. She nodded at Shi Fengming and left with Luya. Big brother. Shi Fengming laughed dryly and said, Big brother, you're so lucky. Sister-in-law is very virtuous. Shi Fengming secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that his big brother's expression had eased up. He couldn't help but admire Sangwon. Big brother didn't lose his temper easily. Once his face sank, even eldest aunt was afraid of him. He hadn't expected that not only would his sister-in-law dare to approach him, but she would also persuade him with a few words. Shi Fengju ignored his words and stared coldly at Su Qing. Our Shi family doesn't welcome you. This isn't a place where you can come. Get out. Su Qing, Er's face turned pale and she subconsciously held Shi Fengming's hand. Big brother. Shi Fengming became anxious. Get out. Shi Fengju became even angrier and said coldly, if you know what's good for you, get out quickly. Otherwise, I'll get someone to throw you out. You can try. Big brother. Shi Fengming became anxious and spread his arms to block Su Qing. Qing doesn't have any ill intentions. We're here to ask for your help. Qing is sincere. Why won't you listen to us? Are you going to get out or not? No one can save you now that you're here. Stop acting like a vixen. It doesn't work in front of me. Shi Fengju stared at Su Qing, with scorching eyes full of mockery and ridicule. Su Qing, felt ashamed and wanted to find a hole to hide in. Others might not understand Shi Fengju's gaze, but she did. Back then, the first person she wanted to flatter and seduce was Shi Fengju. Unfortunately, she didn't succeed. Therefore, she changed her target and set her sights on Shi Fengming. Shi Fengming's character was relatively simple. How could he be a match for the top courtesan of the brothel? He was taken down by Su Qing, in a few rounds. Although Su Qing, had made Shi Fengming fall head over heels for her, she had underestimated the Shi family's resistance to her. When Shi Fengming wanted to take her as his concubine, Second Lord Shi and his wife flew into a rage. If Shi Fengju hadn't stopped them, the two of them would have asked someone to tear down Drunken Fragrance brothel. Later on, the Shi family hurriedly married Shi Fengming, which made Su Qing anxious. Although Shi Fengming liked her, how long could a man maintain his sincerity? Perhaps after marrying a wife and taking in a beautiful concubine, his longing for her would fade after a while. If his wife and concubine had children in a year or so, he would probably forget about her. Chapter 264. How could Su Qing let it go? She hardened her heart and urged Shi Fengming to elope with her. She didn't believe that Second Lord Shi and his wife wouldn't compromise for their son. She knew that Shi Fengju would come to Hangzhou at this time, so she came with Shi Fengju. She wanted to use him to test the Shi family's attitude. If she could return to Qingzhou with Shi Fengju, it would be even better. She hadn't expected that Shi Fengju wouldn't give her any face. He wanted to chase her out. In that case, we won't disturb you, big brother. Sure, let's go. Shi Fengming was furious and wanted to leave with Su Qing. Shi Fengju sneered. Did I say that you can leave? Since you're back, stay here obediently and follow me home in a few days. Shi Fengju raised his eyebrows and shouted. Guards. Chang Huan, several servants, and 5 to 6 thick women appeared. Shi Fengming and Su Qing, expressions changed and they couldn't help but step back. Big brother, what are you doing? Shi Fengju sneered and gave a look. Chang Huan and the others apologized. Second young master, sorry. They rushed forward and subdued Shi Fengming. A few old maids rushed toward Su Qing, at the same time and grabbed her in a flurry. Su Qing, screamed and cried. Those old maids couldn't stand delicate, young and beautiful ladies. The more Su Qing screamed, the more impatient they became. They exerted even more strength and scolded her in a low voice before they pulled her out in a few moves. Big brother, what are you doing? Let go of me. Let go of me. Shi Fengming shouted angrily and struggled, but how could he break free? Shi Fengju said faintly, send second young master back to his room and guard him well. Fengming, you'd better stay here obediently. If you want to blame me, then blame me. This time I will bring you back to second uncle and second aunt no matter what. Shi Fengju, it's none of your business. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to control me? Shi Fengju, you bastard. Shi Fengming cursed in exasperation. Chang Huan and the others were so frightened that they hurriedly pulled him away. In comparison, Su Qing was in a much more miserable state. As she struggled, her clothes became messy, and her hair bun loosened. Her body and arms were pinched and pinched countless times by the fierce-looking women. Xiaolian cried as she jogged after her. She wanted to support her, but she couldn't get close enough to do so. A few old maids escorted Su Qing out of the manor. They pushed her out and snorted coldly before they turned around and left. Xiaolian cried out, "Miss!" and hurriedly went forward to support her. Madame Qin stood at the top of the stairs and sneered condescendingly. Why don't you take a look at yourself? How dare you try to seduce our second young master? You think you're worthy? Su Qing raised her head and stared at her coldly. She gritted her teeth and lowered her head to cry. Madame Qin ignored her and sneered. She ordered someone to close the door, isolating the inside from the outside. It was silent. Miss, what should we do? What should we do? Xiao Lian wiped her tears and cried. Slap. Xiao Lian was slapped in the face. Why are you crying? Hurry up and hail a carriage. She had to go back first. She couldn't just stay here. Her only hope was that Shi Fengming was under house arrest. Even if she cried herself to death here, the door in front of her wouldn't open. Su Qing straightened her messy hair bun and stood up. She tidied her clothes and felt a burning pain all over her body. She was filled with hatred. Those damned old maids were really ruthless. One day, she would get her revenge. This place was very secluded. Most of the houses were built by wealthy families. How could there be carriages coming and going? Xiao Lian looked around for a long time, but she couldn't hail a carriage. The carriages that occasionally came and went were specially used by wealthy families. The noon sun shone down. Although Su Qing was hiding in the shade of a tree, she still felt unbearably hot. Her stomach also started to growl. She couldn't help but think of Shi Fengming. If Shi Fengming was here, she wouldn't have to suffer like this. The more she thought of him, the more she hated him. She hated him for not having his own opinion, and for not being able to protect her. Su Qing couldn't help but think that if Shi Fengju had taken a fancy to her, today's situation definitely wouldn't have happened. Shi Fengju would definitely be able to protect her. She sighed again. If Shi Fengming wasn't so simple, how could he be so loyal to her so easily? After waiting for a while, she couldn't help but feel irritated. She called Xiaolian back, and the two of them slowly walked away. After walking for a long distance, they approached a bustling business district. Only then did they stop a carriage and go to a restaurant in the city to have lunch. Only then did they hurry back to their residence. Unexpectedly, when they arrived at their residence, Shi Lu was already gone. Shi Fengming's personal belongings had also been moved away. The landlord was waiting for her in the hall with a smile. Su Qing suddenly had a bad premonition, and her palms turned cold. Miss Su, you're finally back. Young Master Shi has already left. The house will be rented until this month. Do you still want to renew the lease? If you do, please give me a deposit of 20 taels of silver. If you don't want it, you can move out now. The house will be rented until this month. Doesn't that mean that this month isn't over yet? How can you chase us away? Xiao Lian said angrily. The landlord smiled and said, What you said makes sense, but you have to think about me. What if you run away with the things in my house or sell them? Who am I going to look for? You can stay as long as you pay a deposit of 20 taels of silver. Su Qing's heart was in a mess. Panic and confusion that she had never felt before enveloped her. She said distractedly, Isn't it just 20 taels of silver? I'll give it to you. As she spoke, she went back to her room to look for the money. When she opened the box where she usually kept the banknotes, it was empty. Su Qing's heart turned cold, and she was filled with hatred. When she looked at the accessories that Shi Fengming had bought for her, they were all gone. She had no choice but to pull out a gold hairpin with a ruby embedded in her hair bun, and instructed Xiao Lian to pawn it at the pawn shop. The landlord wasn't in a hurry. She sat in the hall with a smile and waited. After a while, Xiao Lian returned and gave Su Qing a banknote worth 130 taels of silver. Su Qing immediately said angrily, Why is it so little? The ruby on the hairpin is worth more than this. The ruby is worth at least 300 taels of silver. Xiao Lian hurriedly said, I'm just pawning. The shopkeeper said that this is the highest price. This is the pawn shop ticket. Please take a look. Mississippi Su Qing had no choice but to accept it. She threw the banknote worth 20 taels of silver at the landlord and said coldly, You can leave now. The landlord looked at the banknote with a smile and put it away. Then, she placed the receipt that she had prepared in advance on the table and said with a smile, Okay. I'll come to collect the next month's rent on the 25th. You can also give it to me now. By the way, I forgot to tell you that the rent will increase next month. It's 15 taels of silver a month. Don't forget to prepare yourself. What did you say? Su Qing trembled with anger. Don't go overboard. The landlord smiled and said, How am I going overboard? This kind of thing depends on mutual consent. If you're unwilling, you can just not rent it. Su Qing said coldly, We'll talk about it when the time comes. Get out of here right now. Okay. I'll leave now. Don't be angry, miss. The landlord smiled and said, I'll come back on the 25th. By the way, I'll remind you that it's best not to go out at night when it's dark. Remember to close the doors and windows. It's a little inconvenient for the two of you to stay here. Su Qing was shocked and immediately glared at her. Xiao Lian's eyes flashed with fear and her face turned pale. The landlord chuckled and left unhurriedly. Miss, what should we do? Xiao Lian couldn't help but cry. Su Qing was also at a loss. She hadn't expected her life to change so drastically in a day. Things that had been well planned didn't go according to her plan at all. She had thought that the worst-case scenario would be a falling out between Shi Fengju and Shi Fengming, and then she and Shi Fengming would be chased out. She hadn't expected that she would be the only one chased out. As for the landlord, he must have been instructed by Shi Fengju. Su Qing felt that she had nowhere to vent her grievances. She got up angrily and went back to her room to search carefully. Then she was in complete despair. Shi Fengju hadn't left anything for her except for a few pieces of clothes that were neither new nor old. Everything of value was gone. Her eyes flickered as she looked around the room. This lousy place cost 15 taels of silver a month. She might as well stay in an inn. Su Qing planned to move to an inn after this month. She pawned the pair of gold bracelets inlaid with gems, pearl earrings, emerald flower hairpin, and jade pendant in her hands to get some silver. She would think about it after a few days. She believed that Shi Fengming would find a way to find her. Shi Fengju couldn't be by his side all the time. As long as Shi Fengju wasn't around, it wouldn't be difficult for Shi Fengming to get away. After Shi Fengju put Shi Fengming under house arrest, he still couldn't calm down. He went back to his room to look for Sangwan. Sangwan had asked someone to pay attention to the movements in front, and someone had reported everything to her. When she heard that Shi Fengju had come, she quickly got up to welcome him. She signaled Luya with her eyes to leave with everyone else. This is so infuriating. Why is second brother so muddle-headed? Shi Fengju was furious. Sangwan sat down next to him and held his hand. She sighed softly and said, Since second young master was willing to leave home for that woman back then, it can be seen that he is stubborn. Why didn't you talk to him properly? What should we do now that things have turned out this way? Talk to him properly? Shi Fengju sneered and said, He has to listen first. I think that he has clearly lost his mind and is muddle-headed. Bring him back and hand him over to second uncle and second aunt. Let them do whatever they want. I'm too lazy to worry about this. It was rare for Sangwan to hear him speak in a fit of pique. She couldn't help feeling angry and amused at the same time. She said, Second young master is a living person, not an object. How can you take him away just like that? What if an accident happens, and we end up doing something bad with good intentions? How will we explain it to second uncle and second aunt when we go back? Chapter 265. Shi Fengju said, I really can't take this lying down. That B***TCH is so daring. She actually dared to come here openly. I heard from Madame Qin that she even picked your favorite flowers in the garden, and quarreled with Madame Qin. Sangwan said, That's just a small matter. Don't mention it. Seriously, what do you plan to do now? It's not a good idea to lock second young master up like this. Shi Fengju snorted coldly. What else can I do? I'll lock him up for a few days first. I want to see what that B***TCH Su Qing will do when she's at her wit's end. If she's really dead set on second brother, I'll give in to her. Sangwan's expression changed slightly. She was secretly shocked. She knew that Shi Fengju must have made a move on Su Qing, while keeping Shi Fengming under house arrest. She was unlucky to have been targeted by Shi Fengju. I still have some things to do in the next few days. Help me look after second brother. Don't let him escape. Shi Fengju turned his head and said to her. Sangwon nodded and smiled. Don't worry. I'll look after him. It's just that he's been wronged. He should suffer to know what's good for him. Shi Fengju's expression gradually eased. Sangwon ordered the servants to set the table and instructed Madame Qin. Ask the kitchen to prepare a few dishes and send them to second young master. Don't neglect second young master. Madame Qin accepted the order and left. After lunch, Shi Fengju went out again. Sangwon sent him out. She stared blankly at the corridor for a while before she sighed and returned to the house. Young mistress, second young master didn't touch the food sent over at noon. Look, Madame Qin came in and reported. Sangwon thought for a while and went over with Madame Qin. Sangwon asked Madame Qin to leave and went in alone. The doors and windows were tightly shut. Shi Fengming sat in the room with a black face and didn't say a word. He didn't even look at the food box placed at the door. Second young master, you should at least eat a little. Why bother? Sangwon said through the window. Shi Fengming looked up and saw that it was her. He immediately got up and walked over. Sister-in-law, please help me. Let me go. Qing must be waiting anxiously. Please help me. I, Shi Fengming, will remember your great kindness in my heart. I beg you. Sangwon didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Second young master, don't make things difficult for me. How can I change Fengju's mind? Hurry up and eat something. Don't make life difficult for yourself. How could Shi Fengming listen to her? He insisted. No, sister-in-law, I can tell that big brother respects you very much. If you let me go, he definitely won't bear to blame you. Big brother is stubborn, but I believe you can change him. In the past, he had argued with eldest aunt for a long time because of cousin Gu. In the end, didn't he still marry you? Isn't he still treating you well now? Sangwon didn't think that he would suddenly mention this matter. Her face sunk slightly as she said indifferently, Second young master, you think too highly of me. Forgive me for being powerless. Sangwon no longer had the heart to persuade him, and turned to leave. Behind her, the crisp sound of porcelain falling to the ground could be heard. Sangwon jumped in fright, and turned around only to see a bowl of rice on the ground. Shi Fengming picked up a sharp piece of porcelain and pressed it against his wrist. Sister-in-law, let me go. Sangwon's expression changed greatly and she couldn't help but raise her hand to cover her mouth. Shi Fengming rejoiced in his heart, but his face remained cold. Sister-in-law Qing'er is a good girl. You've seen her before. I can't live without her. If you let me go, I'll be grateful to you. Otherwise, I'll die in front of you. Shi Fengming gritted his teeth and pressed the porcelain piece against his wrist. No. Sangwon exclaimed. Shi Fengming said, Sister-in-law, let me go. Sangwon slowly exhaled and stared at him for a moment before slowly shaking her head. Second young master, you know Fengju's temper. He's amenable to coaxing but not coercion. Going against him won't do you any good. I'm right in front of you. What do you think are the chances of you successfully cutting your wrist? But if you hurt yourself without caring, Fengju will only take his anger out on that girl. If you don't think for yourself, shouldn't you think for her? If Fengju wants to deal with her, it won't be difficult. Shi Fengming's expression changed greatly. His hand trembled, and the porcelain piece fell to the ground. He suddenly pounced on Sangwon and stared at her. How is Qing'er? What did Big Brother do to Qing? Sangwon didn't expect that her casual words in a moment of desperation would cause such a big reaction from him. She was shocked and subconsciously took a step back before saying, As long as you're fine, I think she'll be fine too. But if you do anything to anger your big brother, I don't need to say anything to know the result. He dares. Shi Fengming angrily punched the window frame. He dares. If he dares to touch Qing'er, I'll be irreconcilable with him. I won't let him off for the rest of my life. Sangwon sighed softly and said, I believe Fengju understands your temper very well. So don't worry. As long as you don't anger him, he won't do anything to that girl. If you're fine, then she's fine. Shi Fengming was stunned for a moment. The agitation and panic in his eyes gradually returned to normal. Thinking about it, Sangwon was right. If Big Brother didn't want to provoke him, he wouldn't do anything to hurt Qing. Right now he could only plan slowly. He had to think of a way to leave this place first. Thinking about Shi Fengji's temper, Shi Fengming finally calmed down a little. If he were to confront him head-on, he wouldn't be able to gain any advantage. It would be better to calm him down first, and wait for him to relax before finding an opportunity to escape. As long as he could leave this place, he would go far away with Qing. He wouldn't be able to do anything to him. For the time being, he couldn't return to the Shi family. Sangwon saw that he was in a daze and didn't know what he was thinking. His expression was one of joy, one of melancholy, and one of melancholy. No matter what he was thinking, it would be fine as long as he calmed down and didn't make a fuss. The food must have turned cold. I'll ask the kitchen to prepare a bowl of noodles for you. Let's eat something first. Sangwon said softly. Thank you, sister-in-law. Shi Fengming didn't refuse this time. After being tossed around for a while, he was already hungry. Previously, he was full of anger and resentment, but now that he had regained his senses, his stomach was rumbling with hunger. But I don't want to eat noodles. I want to eat shrimp dumplings. Can I trouble sister-in-law to send someone to buy them for me? Shi Fengming asked. Sangwon didn't know whether to laugh or cry at how quickly his mind changed. But if he was willing to eat, it was better than not. She nodded and said with a smile. All right, then wait a moment. I'll send someone to buy them. With that, she turned and left. After buying the shrimp dumplings, the housekeeper opened the door and sent them in. Then, a servant girl went in to clean up the floor and take away the lunchbox that was brought in at noon. Shi Fengming glanced at the door. There were 6 servants waiting at the door with their hands hanging down. They looked like they didn't care at all, but in fact, they were all staring at him with vigilance. There was a courtyard door outside the room, and there were many courtyard doors outside. The possibility of successfully escaping was not high. After thinking about it, he still resisted. Sister-in-law was right. If he angered Big Brother again, he really wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Shi Fengming finished a basket of shrimp dumplings and asked for tea to rinse his mouth. He said to the housekeeper, Don't lock this door. I won't leave. Open the door and let me breathe. The housekeeper stiffened slightly and said with a smile, I'm sorry, second young master. Eldest young master has specially instructed. Old slave doesn't dare to disobey. Second young master, please don't make things difficult for old slave. How about this? When eldest young master returns, old slave will ask for instructions from eldest young master. Shi Fengming was instantly enraged. He slammed the table and said in a deep voice, What? You don't dare to disobey eldest young master's words, but you dare to disobey my words? Old slave doesn't dare. Second young master, please don't make things difficult for old slave. The housekeeper bowed and replied. His attitude was extremely humble, but he didn't show any signs of giving in. Shi Fengming was immediately discouraged. He waved his hand unhappily and shouted, Get out! All of you get out! The housekeeper felt as if he had received an amnesty order. He was eager to hear this and hurriedly agreed. He was even afraid that Shi Fengming would go back on his word, so he hurriedly left. Without hesitation, he waved his hand and 2 servants came forward to close the 2 doors and lock them. Shi Fengming, who was in the room, just watched helplessly. He was so angry that his chest felt stuffy. Big Brother was really too much. Shi Fengji was also worried about the matter of the manor, so he returned in the evening. This time he didn't have time to go back to his room to change his clothes. He first went to Shi Fengming's door and secretly peeked in through the window. He saw Shi Fengming lying on the couch with his legs crossed, looking rather leisurely. Only then did Shi Fengji feel relieved. The anger in his heart also dissipated slightly. He thought to himself, Scoundrel, let's see if I can't control you. After returning to his room to change his clothes and wash his face and hands, he conveniently asked Sangwon if Shi Fengming had been well behaved in the afternoon. Shi Fengming had caused such a big commotion in the afternoon, so it was impossible to hide it. Sangwon then slowly told Shi Fengji about it. Just as she expected, before she could finish speaking, Shi Fengji's face had already darkened. He scolded. Preposterous. He's rebelling. He even dared to cut his wrists and commit suicide. Is he still a 3-year-old child? Shi Fengji's anger, which had just been extinguished, immediately reignited. He suddenly stood up and was about to find Shi Fengming to settle the score. How dare he threaten him? Even his mother couldn't threaten him. Would he be afraid of such a crying, throwing a tantrum, and committing suicide? Believe it or not, he would catch that B*TCH Su Qing, and deal with her. Fengju. Sangwon pulled him back and said with a smile. Listen to me first. I've persuaded him. It's fine now. She had persuaded him? Shi Fengju raised his eyebrows and looked at Sangwon. That lad's temper was very bad. She had persuaded him so easily? Sangwon repeated what she had said and said with a smile. I said that because I had no other choice. I didn't say anything wrong, right? You can't blame me even if I'm wrong. Shi Fengju was relieved. He turned around and hugged her with a smile. Wan Yang, you understand me. You're right. If he really wants to commit suicide with me, I'll discipline Su Qing, or until she's better off dead. Sangwon sighed softly and nestled in his arms. No matter what, second young master is your younger brother. You'll have to meet him in the future. You must be careful. Don't make him hate you in the end. Shi Fengju's heart warmed when he heard this. He knew that she was sincerely thinking for him. He lowered his head and kissed her forehead gently. Don't worry. After the two of them had dinner, the butler came over and requested to see them. He said with a smile that second young master wanted to see eldest young master. Sangwon thought that Shi Fengju would get up and leave. She looked up and was about to say something when Shi Fengju's face darkened. He said faintly, Tell him that I don't have time to bother with him now. We'll talk about it in a few days. If he asks you to pass on a message again, ignore him. Chapter 266. Eldest Young Master. The housekeeper was in a difficult position and looked pleadingly at Sangwon. Sangwon knew that Shi Fengju was deliberately trying to make Shi Fengming suffer. So she smiled at the housekeeper and said, Why aren't you leaving yet? Just do as eldest young master says. Remember to ask someone to keep an eye on second young master at the door. Don't let him cause any trouble again. Yes. The housekeeper had no choice but to accept the order and leave. Shi Fengju acted as if nothing had happened, and ordered Luya to light up the lamp and organize all kinds of documents under the light. On the other side, Shi Fengming had been eagerly waiting for his eldest brother to come and talk to him since last night. He waited impatiently, but there was no sign of him, so he couldn't help but ask someone to invite him over. Who knew that he would only see the housekeeper after waiting for so long? Where's my eldest brother? When will he come over? Shi Fengming leaned against the caltrip flower lattice window and stood on his tiptoes, looking at the long corridor behind the housekeeper from the corner of his eyes. Shi Fengming had a bad temper, so the housekeeper subconsciously took 2 steps back and forced a smile. In a moment, the old slave will ask someone to fetch water. Second young master should wash up and sleep first. Eldest young master is busy right now, so I'm afraid he won't have time to see second young master. Busy? Shi Fengming's eyes flashed sharply. You really went to pass the message? Second young master. The housekeeper was shocked. Even if the old slave had the guts, he wouldn't dare to deceive second young master. Eldest young master really said so. Shi Fengming was both disappointed and depressed. Thinking about it, it was possible. How could he not be busy during the Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce? He thought for a moment and said, Then what about my sister-in-law? You can at least call her over, right? The housekeeper was shocked and thought that if he went over again, eldest young master would be angry. He quickly smiled and said, Eldest young mistress is waiting on eldest young master. She won't have time. Shi Fengming became angry and glared at him. Scram. The butler wiped his sweat and hurriedly retreated. In Chuilu Alley, Su Qing sent Xiao Lian to a small restaurant nearby to buy a few dishes. The master and servant ate as they pleased. When they saw that the sky was gradually darkening and thought of the landlord's words, they couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive. They hurriedly closed the door to the courtyard and went to bed early. Su Qing lay on the bed and couldn't fall asleep. She recalled how she had hugged Fengming sweetly last night. In the blink of an eye, she was alone on a cold pillow. She couldn't help but feel even more melancholy. Without a man in the house, It was as if it immediately became different. It was as if danger was hidden everywhere in the darkness, causing her to tremble in fear and not dare to sleep. After tossing and turning for half the night, Su-ching finally closed her eyes and fell asleep. In his sleep he suddenly heard a mournful shout. Not good. Fire! Fire! Come and put out the fire! Su-ching was so shocked that her heart almost jumped out of her chest. She sat up on the bed at once. When she saw that there seemed to be a reflection of the fire outside, she screamed and sat on the bed. She shouted, Xiao Lian, little Lian, get up quickly and go out to take a look. Xiao Lian rubbed her sleepy eyes and got up from the ground. She casually wrapped herself in an outer garment and went out. After a while, she ran back in a panic. Miss, not good, not good. Our house is on fire. Miss, run for your life. Xiao Lian was so shocked that her teeth chattered. She put on her clothes and tied her skirt in a flurry. You didn't see wrongly. Su-ching's heart turned cold. Miss, you're right. Let's go quickly. It'll be too late if we delay any longer. Xiao Lian said in a sobbing tone. Su-ching suddenly thought of Shi Fengjiu and gritted her teeth in hatred. She immediately understood and hurriedly got out of bed to put on her clothes. She wrapped up the remaining jewelry and clothes and went out with Xiao Lian. Put out the fire quickly. Oh no! All sorts of noises could be heard. The courtyard door had been knocked open from the outside. Countless people were running back and forth with buckets of water. The kitchen was on fire, and it had already spread to the west wing. Soon, it would burn through the main room, and half of the sky was dyed red by the fire. Miss, let's run for our lives. Xiao Lian cried as she pulled Su-ching and wanted to run outside. Wait! Su-ching grabbed her and said softly. Are you crazy? We can't go out. We have to escape from the back door. If the landlord rushes over, we won't be able to leave. Xiao Lian was stunned and immediately understood. If the landlord came and saw this, he would definitely ask them for compensation. Her face turned pale, and she hurriedly nodded. Miss, you're right. Let's leave from the back door. Unexpectedly, before the master and servant had even taken 2 steps, they heard a burst of hurried footsteps approaching from afar. Someone shouted in a loud voice. Watch everywhere for me, don't let this bitch escape. Su-ching was shocked. She pulled Xiao Lian to hide in the shadows and hurriedly rushed toward the back door. Unexpectedly, there were already people waiting at the back door. The torches were brightly lit. Su-ching and Xiao Lian were caught off guard and were caught red-handed by the landlord. Alright, B*TCH. You really want to escape. The landlord pointed at Su-ching and scolded her. With a wave of his hand, a few people stepped forward and captured Su-ching and her servant. What do you want to do? Su-ching struggled in shock. What do we want to do? The landlord gritted her teeth and scolded. Of course we want compensation. You B*TH. What does it have to do with me that your man ran away? You're venting your anger on my house. You burned down such a big courtyard, and you still want to escape? What does it have to do with me? Su-ching clearly knew that she couldn't defend herself, but how could she bear to be wronged? She said in exasperation. In all honesty, we were sleeping in the room and didn't know anything. We didn't set the fire. If it wasn't you, then who did it? The landlord sneered. How would I know? Su-ching was annoyed. The landlord looked up and laughed. She spread out her hands and said in a strange voice, You don't know? Then tell me, who should I look for? You're living in this house. If I don't look for you, who should I look for? What are you doing? What's going on here? The blazing fire had alarmed the patrolling soldiers. The constables from the government office had also arrived. They were organizing people to put out the fire, while looking for the owner of the house. Sir, you've come at the right time. This house belongs to me. This B*TCH rented my house and set it on fire. She's trying to escape punishment. Fortunately, I was more careful and caught her red-handed. The landlord hurriedly stepped forward and said, Sir, I'm innocent. I didn't set the fire. I'm innocent. Su-ching looked at the constables pitifully. Under the dim light of the fire, She looked delicate and timid. Her eyes were bright, as if they were filled with worry. She looked very pitiful. When the landlord saw that the constables were looking at Su Qing, with infatuation, she couldn't help but feel hatred in her heart. She spat at Su Qing, and pointed at her. You shameless B*th. Who are you trying to impress by acting like a vixen? There are all kinds of fairies in Hangzhou. Do you think that we haven't seen the world? Don't think of using tricks to get away with it. The fire clearly started in the kitchen. You must have accidentally left the fire at night. Besides, if you didn't do it, why did you run away? Sir, look at you. You even took the bag. Instead of going out to put out the fire, you ran to the back door. Fortunately, I came quickly. Otherwise, who would I look for to compensate you? Su Qing, was so angry that her face turned pale. You're twisting words and forcing logic. It really has nothing to do with me. I'm innocent. The landlord sneered. Then why are you feeling guilty? Why are you running away? Su Qing was speechless. After a while she stammered. I was afraid that you would blame me and want me to compensate you. That's why. As expected, you have a guilty conscience. The landlord clapped her hands and interrupted her. If you're innocent, why are you afraid of being wronged? The adults will make a clear judgment. Do you think that the adults are muddle-headed? Su Qing was at a loss for words. She even wanted to die. For a moment, she almost blurted out Shi Fengju's name, but she still had a bit of rationality left in her and managed to hold herself back. Not to mention that she didn't have any evidence. Even if she did, would she be able to win against Shi Fengju? If she said Shi Fengju, wouldn't people ask why he wanted to harm her? Then she wouldn't be able to hide the fact that she had seduced Shi Fengming to abandon his parents and wife and run away from home. The Shi family and Shi Fengming would be greatly disgraced. It would be impossible for her to turn things around. Su Qing immediately sobbed and cried out that she had been wronged. The landlord sneered at the side and scolded her countless times with the words, B***tch, and little B***tch. The leader of the constables got impatient and shouted, Enough! All of you come with me. When we reach the yamen, the adults will make a clear judgment. After saying that, he waved his hand. Take all of you away. Su Qing was shocked. Without any explanation, all the officials went forward to detain them. The landlord cooperated and said with a smile, There's no need to trouble all of you. I can walk on my own. I also have the intention to ask the governor to make a decision. When the sky turned white, the fire was finally put out. Fortunately, it didn't implicate the surrounding residences, and only this courtyard was burned down. The neighbors heaved a sigh of relief. After the landlord learned about it, she stomped her feet and cursed her bad luck. After the trial, Su Qing had no choice but to admit her guilt. The fire had started in the kitchen. The biggest possibility was that the master and servant had accidentally left the fire. Since they couldn't find any evidence to prove it, she could only admit to it. The landlord had asked for an exorbitant price. He had calculated a large sum of money, such as the cost of the bricks and wood, the renovation, the cost of the furniture, the cost of labor, the cost of flowers, and so on. In total, it was 1,800 taels of silver. Su Qing was so angry that her vision darkened and she almost fainted. Su Qing refused to pay so much and was only willing to pay 500 taels of silver. When the landlord heard this, her eyes almost spat fire. She glared at Su Qing and firmly disagreed. The two of them almost quarreled in the court again. This was originally a simple matter, and the magistrate didn't have much patience. Seeing that the two of them weren't easy to deal with, he couldn't be bothered to mediate. Listening to their quarrel was really annoying, so he slammed down his gavel and awarded 1,500 taels to withdraw from the court. Although the landlord felt regretful, she reluctantly accepted it and kowtowed to thank him. Su Qing was shocked and angry, but she had no choice but to accept it. Su Qing only had a few pieces of jewelry left. She only had 100 taels of silver from the gold hairpin she had pawned yesterday. It was still far from enough. Chapter 267. After leaving the government office, the landlord's greedy gaze swept across her bag and she said with a smile, "Miss, don't you still have a few things to sell? I'll suffer a little loss. Give them all to me, and this matter will be over. I don't think you'll be able to fork out the money." Suqing was so angry that she felt dizzy. She sneered and said, "You're really scheming. My pair of bracelets is worth at least 2,000 taels of silver. Yet you want to take all my things?" The landlord sneered disdainfully. "Miss, you're wrong. Aren't those things the ones you wore on your head yesterday? I've seen them too. They're old models from 2 years ago. They're worthless now. If I take them from you, I'll have to take them to a goldsmith shop and ask a master to melt them down and forge them again before I can pay for them. There's no cost involved, right? I'm only saying this because I pity you. If you don't believe me, you can go to any pawn shop and ask. Let's see what kind of price they'll give you." Suqing sneered again. "My jewelry is made by a famous shop. It won't depreciate for many years. Genuine goods at a fair price aren't worth a lot of money. Do you think I'm that easy to fool?" The landlord's lips twitched and she sneered silently. She didn't reply and only urged her to find a pawn shop. Suqing couldn't wait to get rid of her tail. When she saw a pawn shop, she went in and asked. First, she took out the pair of golden bracelets inlaid with gems. After looking at them, she offered a price of 500 taels of silver. Suqing was anxious and said, "If you pawn them, you can add another 150 taels of silver." Suqing took the bracelets angrily and turned to leave. She ignored the landlord's gloating gaze and continued to look for the next pawn shop. Needless to say, the price offered by each shop was about the same. The landlord wasn't wrong. All the things she had on her were worth less than 1,500 taels of silver. Suqing was so exhausted that her face was drained of blood. The landlord was in high spirits and full of energy. She kept urging Suqing to quickly pawn them and return the money. "I say, miss, I'll just spend the whole day working on your matter. I won't charge you for running errands or labor costs. But I have to tell you, if you don't pay me back today, I'll charge you interest. 5% a day, the interest will compound. After a few days, I'm afraid that even if I sell you to a brothel, you won't be able to pay me back." When Suqing heard that, she glared at the landlord and wished she could skin him alive. In the end, after running around for a day, Suqing had no choice but to turn around and beg the landlord to give her all the jewelry to offset her debt. How could the landlord stop while he was ahead? He wouldn't have any sympathy for them. This time, when she saw that Suqing had given in, she wasn't so easy to get rid of. She grumbled unwillingly and insisted on receiving cash. She complained a lot, saying that the old jewelry was not worth much, and that she had to worry about it even if she took it. When Suqing heard this, she felt hatred in her heart. She knew that the landlord was very willing and had deliberately said this to squeeze more benefits out of her. She was still thinking about the 100 taels of silver that she had left after pawning the gold hairpin yesterday. Suqing scolded her in her heart, but she had no choice but to add another 50 taels of silver to get rid of the landlord. Suqing sighed helplessly. She couldn't care less about her image. She sat down by the roadside and was lost in her thoughts as she watched the landlord put away the items with a smug look on his face and walk briskly with his thick waist. "Miss, it's getting late. Let's find a place to stay first." When Xiaolian saw that she was sitting there motionlessly, her eyes unfocused as she stared ahead, she couldn't help but feel a little flustered. When Suqing heard that, she slowly turned her head and asked, "Xiaolian, do you think I did something wrong?" "Miss, what are you talking about? How could you be wrong?" Xiaolian quickly smiled and said. Suqing smiled bitterly and shook her head. "No, I was wrong. I underestimated Shifengjiu. He's really capable of doing anything. I'm afraid that I won't be able to see him again." When Suqing thought of how good Shifengming was, her heart suddenly ached and she felt a little sad. She couldn't help but think that if she had agreed to Shifengming's idea that night, the two of them would have settled down in a small town with simple folk customs and led an ordinary life. Wouldn't that have been good? Suqing laughed at herself and shook her head slowly. It was impossible for her to adapt to that kind of life. That kind of life filled with the smell of smoke, and dealing with pots and pans was definitely not something she could tolerate. It was fine if it was just a day or two, but she definitely couldn't stand it for a long time. Do you think that he will come back to look for me? Su Qing looked at Xiao Lian pitifully. Too many unforeseen events had happened in the past 2 days, and Xiao Lian was also deeply affected. When she saw her like this, she felt even more sad. She quickly nodded and said, "Yes, yes. Second master treats you so well. He will definitely come back to look for you. He definitely won't abandon you." Really? That's not necessarily the case. Su Qing sneered. Since she was young, her life in the brothel had taught her that a man's so-called sincerity and love were the most untrustworthy things in the world. As long as she had a beautiful appearance, had the means and was scheming, how many men in the world couldn't seduce her? Even Shi Fengjiu had thought that she had used the wrong method, and it wasn't that she wasn't charming enough. If Shi Fengming could be seduced by her, he would naturally be seduced by others. It was only a matter of time. Since Shi Fengjiu was so ruthless, it was unlikely that he would escape to look for her. Moreover, Hangzhou was so big, and she didn't live there anymore. Where could he look for her? So what if he found her? He had brought 80,000 taels of silver with him when he eloped last time. If he escaped this time, he probably wouldn't even have 1 tael of silver, right? Then, what would they live on? Without money, not to mention enduring 2 years with his parents, even if it was 2 days, they wouldn't be able to endure it. Let's go. Let's find an inn to stay in first. Su Qing suddenly stood up, and an unusually calm ray of light flashed in her eyes. Xiao Lian was stunned for a moment before she hurriedly followed her. Another day passed, but Shi Fengjiu still hadn't gone to see Shi Fengming. Shi Fengming was so anxious that he was about to go crazy. However, no matter how much trouble he made, the butler simply turned a deaf ear to him. He simply said, "Eldest young master has something to do. Second young master, please wait patiently for a few days," and dismissed him. Shi Fengming was fuming with anger. Wait a few more days? He didn't know what would happen to Qing, or if he waited a few more days. He was so anxious that he was about to burst into flames, but he couldn't do anything about it. On this day, Shi Fengming threw a tantrum again and shouted at the servant outside, "Go and find your young mistress. She should be free, right? I have something to look for her for. Go quickly." The servant who was in charge of guarding outside the door had suffered endless damage to his ears. When he heard Shi Fengming shouting again, he had no choice but to report to Sangwan so that his ears wouldn't suffer more. Sangwan thought for a moment, and knew that he was definitely concerned about Su Qing, and wanted to find out more about her. But how would she know? It wasn't convenient for her to refute him, so she went over. Sister-in-law. Unexpectedly, when they met, Shi Fengming had a calm expression. He wasn't anxious or impatient, and he even smiled and nodded at her to greet her. Sangwan couldn't help but be stunned. She smiled and said, "Second young master, are you looking for me for something?" Shi Fengming sighed and said, "I want to ask you how Qing is doing, but I also know that you wouldn't know. It's pointless to ask. I'm just bored and want to talk to you. You won't despise me, right?" Shi Fengming looked over anxiously. Sangwan was angry and amused at the same time. She said, "We're family, so why would I despise you? Just say what you want to say. I'm right here." Sister-in-law is indeed virtuous. No wonder big brother treats you so well. Shi Fengming smiled and thanked her. He really started chatting with Sangwan through the window. First, he asked about his parents' situation. Then he asked about the Shi family. He asked about the Shi family's business, what interesting things had happened in Qingzhou, and so on. After chatting for a while, Sangwan finally regained her senses when Luya came over to ask when lunch would be served. Shi Fengming was immediately embarrassed and said, "It's all my fault for forgetting the time. Sister-in-law, you should go eat first. With sister-in-law to talk to, my days will be much better." He then added, "Can sister-in-law come over in the afternoon to talk to me again? In the afternoon, you should ask the servants to bring a chair over. Sister-in-law is also tired of standing." As a daughter-in-law, the first thing she had to practice when serving her mother-in-law was standing. However, Sangwon had never set any rules in front of Wang. Suddenly, she felt a little tired after standing for half a day. She had just heaved a sigh of relief when she heard Shi Fengming say this again. She could only nod and agree with a smile. After resting for a while after lunch, Sangwon continued to chat with Shi Fengming. As expected, she ordered the servants to bring a large round-back chair over and placed it on the porch in front of the window. She then continued to chat with Shi Fengming. For some reason, when they talked about Shi Fengju, Shi Fengming sighed and said with a smile, "Sister-in-law, there's a question that I've been pondering for a long time. If I ask, you won't be angry, right?" Sangwon smiled and said, "If there's anything you want to ask, just ask." Shi Fengming smiled and said, "My big brother and cousin Gu can be considered childhood sweethearts. Sister-in-law, don't be angry. To be honest, they are really very good. Big brother is very protective of cousin Gu and can't bear for her to suffer even a little bit. I always thought that he would fight against eldest aunt to the end. I didn't expect that in the end he still married you, sister-in-law. I don't have any other intentions. I'm just curious. Hee, big brother is also very good to sister-in-law. I really didn't expect." Sangwon did not expect him to ask such a question. She was immediately embarrassed. How could she say this? "Second young master, you're really making things difficult for me." After a moment, Sangwon forced a smile and said, "I married your big brother to abide by the marriage agreement. As for other things, it's not something that I can control. If second young master is really curious and wants an answer, why don't you ask your big brother instead of asking me? That's right, don't forget to tell me the answer after you ask." When Shi Fengming heard this, he laughed out loud and hurriedly said, "Sister-in-law, I really didn't mean to make fun of you. Please don't be angry. Ask my big brother? How would I dare? He'll definitely skin me alive. Speaking of which, I really admire sister-in-law. My big brother is famous for being stubborn." Chapter 268. Why did these words sound so unpleasant to him? Sangwon suddenly felt a little awkward. She laughed self-deprecatingly and nodded her head. "I think I must have used some scheming methods to coax your big brother." Shi Fengming couldn't help but feel annoyed. He suddenly realized that his words seemed to be ambiguous. He quickly smiled and apologized. "Sister-in-law, you are gentle and elegant. You are a good match for my eldest brother. My eldest brother must have seen how good you are. I'm sorry for not knowing how to speak properly. Please don't blame me." Sangwon smiled and shook her head. "Don't just think about your eldest brother. Think about it. Besides your parents, you also have a wife waiting for you at home. You abandoned her on your wedding day. Have you ever thought about her situation? Have you thought about how miserable her life would be?" Sangwon had a good relationship with Zhou Jingyi. She had long wanted to ask Shi Fengming about this and that, but he hadn't managed to get anything out of Zhou Jingyi. However, he had started the conversation himself. Upon hearing her mention his wife at home, Shi Fengming suddenly felt a little unnatural and disgusted. He subconsciously tilted his head to the side. He really didn't like Zhou Jingyi. It wasn't because of anything else, but because Zhou Jingyi was the person his parents had used to destroy his relationship with Qing. Subconsciously, he couldn't and wasn't willing to blame his parents. Thus, he could only blame Zhou Jingyi. If it weren't for her, he and Su Qing wouldn't have ended up in such a state. They wouldn't have run away from their parents. Everything was because of her arrival. Shi Fengming forced a smile and said indifferently, "We have everything at home. We don't have to worry about food and clothing. We have servants to serve her. How could she be wronged? How could her life be miserable?" Sangwon felt a chill in her heart and sighed. She was abandoned by her husband on her wedding day. Just this point alone is enough for her to suffer. Do you really think so? She is your wife after all. In fact, she has been thinking about you and missing you. She is waiting for you to return. Save it. Shi Fengming frowned and said in disgust, "I have nothing to say to her and I don't intend to spend my life with her. She was the one who chose to marry into our family, so she should bear the consequences herself." Sangwon was stunned for a moment. She couldn't help but think of her previous life. In her previous life, Shi Fengju must have had the same thought, right? No, not only in the previous life, but also in this life. She remembered clearly that on the night of their wedding night, his eyes had been so cold that there wasn't a trace of warmth. Even though he doted on and protected her, and it could even be said that he cherished her, she still could not forget the look in his eyes that night. Every time she thought of it, it was as if she was being pricked by needles. Second young master, you're too naive. Sangwon laughed instead and said calmly, even without the Zhou family, there would be a lady from the Zhang family, Lu family, or Li family who would marry into the Shi family to become your wife. No matter who it is, it can't be Miss Su. Sister-in-law is innocent. It's unfair for you to say that about her. She would occasionally visit me when she was free. I could tell that she really cared about you and respected you. She was always waiting for you to come back. Don't you know? Madame Zhou and the eldest young mistress of the Zhou family once came to ask for a divorce, but sister-in-law insisted on it. Second young master, she's really good. Why can't you let go of your prejudices and treat her well? Shi Fengming glanced at Sangwon and couldn't help but laugh. Sister-in-law, what you said makes sense. Did you persuade my elder brother in the same way? Second young master. Sangwon's face sank and she was annoyed. What was he talking about? Was he comparing her with Su Qing? Shi Fengming was stunned for a moment before he came back to his senses. He felt a little embarrassed for no reason. I'm sorry, sister-in-law. I spoke without thinking. Please don't be angry. I'll apologize to you. As he spoke, he really took 2 steps back and bowed to Sangwon with cupped hands. Sangwon came back to her senses and waved her hand. Second young master, you don't have to do this. I know you didn't mean it, so I won't take issue with you. However, I'm sincerely advising you. Jingyi is really a good lady. It's unfair for you to treat her like this. She didn't want to marry you. If she knew that your heart belonged to someone else, she might not be willing to marry you. However, she's already married to you. Besides you, what else can she count on in her life? She's your wife after all. Even if she dies, she'll be buried in the Shi family's ancestral grave, or in the Shi family's ancestral hall. Do you really have the heart to treat her like this? Don't you feel any guilt when you're having fun with Miss Su outside? Shi Fengming thought for a while and said, Jingyi? Zhou Jingyi? So that's her name. I don't really remember what she looks like. If she wants to blame someone, she should blame her parents. She can't blame me. This person was hopeless. Sangwon felt as if she was playing the lute to a cow. When she thought of Zhou Jingyi, who was yearning for Shi Fengming and waiting for him to return, Sangwon truly felt that it wasn't worth it for her. She had entrusted her feelings to him for nothing. Sister-in-law, you said that their family wants a divorce? This is a good thing. Why didn't my parents agree to it? Shi Fengming asked again. Sangwon was stumped for a moment. She thought to herself that what she had said earlier was in vain. He still didn't understand. Second young master, Sangwon sighed softly. So what if they get a divorce? Don't tell me that you won't get married in the future? Shi Fengming wanted to refute and say that he would marry Su Qing, or in the future. However, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. This was simply impossible. Not to mention that his parents wouldn't agree. Even he had never thought of marrying Su Qing, or as his wife. Su Qing, or had told him that she would be satisfied with being a concubine. In that case, he would eventually have to get married in the future. Sangwon was right about one thing. If it wasn't the Zhou family, it would be the Li family or the Lu family. There would always be a girl from one of those families who would marry into the Shi family and become his wife. Shi Fengming suddenly felt a little disheartened. He suddenly felt that his resistance all this time seemed to have become a joke. Shi Fengming sighed softly. He hated the unfairness of this world. His Qing, was so good, so why did she have to be born into a prostitute? How good would it be if she was a girl from a wealthy family? However, if she was really a girl from a wealthy family, how could he recognize her so easily? As Shi Fengming thought about it, he felt a headache and was extremely vexed. Sister-in-law, can you ask eldest brother to come and see me? I have something to ask him. What does he mean by locking me up here and not asking about me? He can't lock me up here forever, can he? If he doesn't come and ask you to tell him that if anything happens to Qing, I will never forgive him in this lifetime. Shi Fengming suddenly looked at Sangwon and said softly. Sangwon was slightly shocked and felt even more disappointed. Zhou Jingyi had lost to Su Qing, and was truly wronged. Zhou Jingyi was even more innocent than she was. She was helpless because she was bound by the marriage contract. However, Zhou Jingyi had foolishly married into the Shi family and was obviously a chess piece. She had become an abandoned chess piece. If her family hadn't been somewhat capable, who knew what kind of situation she would have ended up in? Her husband, on the other hand, had been thinking about that person and had even broken off relations with his family for her. Do you know what your eldest brother has done for you? I'm his wife and there are some things that I shouldn't say. However, I want to tell you now that he nearly lost his life in Handan to look for you. Yet, you want to break off relations with him. You should say this in front of him. Sangwon secretly felt sorry for Shi Fengju. Shi Fengming was shocked. Sister-in-law, what did you say? What happened to eldest brother? Sangwon looked at him and didn't say anything. Sister-in-law, tell me quickly. What happened to eldest brother? Shi Fengming was a little anxious. Although they weren't biological brothers, they had been on good terms since they were young. He had always respected and even revered his eldest brother. He wasn't afraid of his father, but he rarely dared to disobey his eldest brother. Do you really want to know? You stayed in Handan before, right? Shi Fengming nodded. Sangwon told him everything that had happened and said, let's not look at anything else. Just look at your eldest brother's good intentions. Second young master, don't be stubborn with him. Both of you are flesh and blood. Shi Fengming felt extremely guilty and sighed after a while. Fortunately, eldest brother is fine. Otherwise, eldest aunt would hate me to death. If something really happened to eldest brother, how could he live in peace for the rest of his life? How could he still have the face to see eldest aunt? Shi Fengming's heart was in a mess and he punched the window. Why did such a difficult thing fall on his head? I only want to be with the person I like. She doesn't ask for a status either. Why do all of you have to target her? However, when he thought of that delicate and beautiful woman who was willing to suffer any hardship for him, Shi Fengming felt conflicted again. You're the young master of the Shi family. How can you be so willful? You have responsibilities that you have to bear. If you keep avoiding them and make the Shi family a laughingstock, isn't that wrong? Sangwon wanted to say that Su Qing didn't look like a good person at first glance. She couldn't even compare to Gu Fengzi. She really didn't know what he saw in her. If she was really a decent person, Fengju, who was in the same boat as him, might help him. When Shi Fengming heard this, he was very unconvinced and couldn't help but sneer. He said half-mockingly, Sister-in-law, do you mean that everyone should be like eldest brother and give up their love for the sake of their family's reputation? It's no wonder that sister-in-law thinks so. If not, you wouldn't be my sister-in-law. I just didn't expect that someone like eldest brother would actually compromise. It can be seen that he doesn't really like cousin Gu, but I'm different. I'm sincere to Qing, and will never change. Second young master. Sangwon stood up furiously. Before she could flare up, an angry rebuke came from behind her. Second brother, what nonsense are you talking about? Shi Fengju walked over with a gloomy face. He was obviously very angry. Shi Fengming was embarrassed for a moment and his face turned red. He straightened his neck and glared at Shi Fengju without showing any signs of weakness. I'm not talking nonsense. What I said is the truth. Eldest brother, you gave up, so why should I give up too? I won't be a heartless and fickle person. Heartless and fickle. Shi Fengju was so angry that he laughed. With his hands behind his back he sneered. What do you know about heartless and fickle? You're being played by a woman from a brothel. Yet you're so proud of yourself. Sometimes, I really want to split open your head to see what's inside. If you dare to be so rude to your sister-in-law, I won't let you off. Chapter 269. Qing'er is sincere to me. Shi Fengming jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He said exasperatedly. Don't say sour grapes when you can't eat them. You're heartless, so you can't wait for others to be like you. I don't mean to be rude to sister-in-law. I'm telling the truth. I don't believe that she doesn't know anything about your past with cousin Gu. Sangwon couldn't listen to him anymore. She lifted her feet and was about to leave. Ever since Shi Fengju came over, she had lowered her eyes slightly and stood at the side without saying a word. As she listened to the two brothers talking about this matter, Sangwon felt as if a needle had been ruthlessly stabbed into her heart. It turned out that in Shi Fengming's eyes, Sangwon had become the culprit who had broken up a childhood sweetheart. He seemed to have forgotten that this marriage agreement was clearly first. Wan Yang. Shi Fengju grabbed her hand and squeezed it hard. You guys continue chatting. I'm going back. Sangwon couldn't break free. She looked up and forced a smile at him. Shi Fengju stared at her with his deep eyes. Suddenly, he pulled her into his arms and hugged her tightly. He said to Shi Fengming, I won't deny what happened in the past. I'm not afraid to tell you that I liked the wrong person in the past and hurt Wan Yang. It's my fault. Now, I just want to spend the rest of my life with Wan Yang. She's the most important person in my life. Some words are hurtful. If you dare to be unrestrained in front of Wan Yang again, don't blame me for being impolite. Don't you just want to know about Su Qing's situation? Shi Fengju sneered. Don't worry. I won't ask anyone to touch her. However, she has the freedom to do whatever she wants. Second brother, I think you've wasted your efforts. If she really has you in her heart, I haven't seen her come over these few days. I'm afraid she has already forgotten about you. You. Shi Fengming was so angry that his face turned pale. He stomped his feet and said, How would she dare to come over when you treat her so fiercely? How dare you make sarcastic remarks in front of me? Shi Fengju retorted. Ferocious? I only asked someone to force her out. Did I ask someone to beat her up? That scared her so much that she disappeared without a trace. To you she's really. Shi Fengju shook his head and clicked his tongue. If she had knelt in front of the villa for a day and a night, perhaps my heart would have softened and I would have turned a blind eye. Unfortunately, she never came back after she left. Nonsense. You're talking nonsense. She wouldn't treat me like this. Let me out and I'll go find her myself. Shi Fengming was so anxious that his mind was in a mess. Shi Fengju raised his eyebrows and said, Don't worry, I will let you find her, but not now. You'd better behave yourself and stay here quietly. Don't make a fuss. Your sister-in-law isn't here to chat with you. If you want to chat, ask the butler to chat with you. If you continue to cause trouble, then you'll be forcing me to make a move. Shi Fengju no longer paid any attention to him. He hugged Sangwon and left. Sangwon's footsteps were somewhat strained and her heart felt uncomfortable. She kept her head down and didn't make a sound. When they passed by the garden, she suddenly stopped and said indifferently, You go back first. I want to take a walk in the garden. After she finished speaking, she gently pushed his arm away. Shi Fengju was startled. He turned his head and signaled for Lu Ya and the others to leave. He still hugged her and said with a smile, Why would I go back alone? I'll go with you. Sangwon shook her head. I want to be alone. You're tired. Go back and rest. I'm not going, Shi Fengju said. I won't disturb you. Seeing his insistence, Sangwon stared at him and didn't say anything else. She slowly walked into the garden and pushed his hand away. It's quite hot. Don't be like this. Shi Fengju glanced at her and didn't continue to touch her. Sure enough, he followed behind her silently. At this time, the most beautiful flower in the garden was the crepe myrtle. Purple, red, pink, and white flowers bloomed like a raging fire. Sangwon stood under a pomegranate tree full of small green fruits. She stared blankly at the blooming crepe myrtle in a daze. She still couldn't walk out of the nightmarish past life. Even if Shi Fengju protected her and doted on her, she still couldn't get rid of it. Wan Yang. Shi Fengju hugged her from behind and whispered softly in her ear. Second brother doesn't know what to say, so don't take it to heart. Don't you know how I treat you? Sangwon's lips moved. After a moment, she said softly, Fengju, have you ever hated me? After a moment of silence, Shi Fengju said, I used to blame you, but I never hated you. Wan Yang, didn't we agree not to talk about the past? Look, I brought you out to let you relax, but I didn't expect to encounter such a troublesome matter. Seeing you like this, I don't feel good either. Sangwon smiled gently and said self-deprecatingly. It seems that I was born without the fortune to relax and enjoy life. I've let down your good intentions. Shi Fengju turned her body around to face him. He raised his hand and caressed her face. He smiled and said, Your thoughts are too heavy. Sometimes, even I don't know what you're thinking about. Why bother? Wan Yang, Shi Fengju will never let you down in this life. You just have to be affected by the words of others. Sangwon said, I'm just afraid. I'm afraid that the fate of my past life will take a turn and return. How would you understand? She forced a smile. I'm also a woman. How can I remain indifferent after hearing those words from others? I didn't say that I took it to heart. I just felt uncomfortable. Sangwon laughed at herself. She still couldn't get rid of her bad habit of worrying for nothing. Since she was reborn, why bother with the past? What was the use of worrying about what had already happened? How Gu Fengzi managed to get to where she was today? She had seen it all clearly. Was she going to make the same mistake as Gu Fengzi? Sangwon couldn't help but shiver. Okay, I won't think about it. He can say whatever he wants. Let's go back. Sangwon said with a smile. Shi Fengju said, that bastard actually dared to compare you to that bitch. I won't forgive you. If he calls you again in the future, just ignore him. You're my wife. It's not worthwhile for you to chat with him. Sangwon glared at him and said, whether it was intentional or not, he said those words today. How can I be in the mood to chat with him? Even if you don't say it, I won't go tomorrow. She admitted that she wasn't that generous. She was even a bit annoyed. Shi Fengju laughed and pinched her face. I forgot that my family's Wan Yang also has a temper. It seems I was overthinking. That's right, the matters here are pretty much settled. Tomorrow, I'll take you around Hangzhou to play, okay? I'll buy you anything you want. I've neglected you these past few days. Sangwon smiled and said, let's rest in the manor tomorrow. We're not in a hurry anyway. These past few days, Madame Qin has accompanied me around quite a bit. Shi Fengju held her hand and smiled. That's good. Tomorrow, I'll draw your eyebrows and add to your dowry, okay? Sangwon blushed slightly. She was annoyed that he didn't say anything. Shi Fengju couldn't help but lower his head and kiss her. He said in a low and hoarse voice, Wan Yang, we haven't been intimate these past few days. This won't do. When will we have a son like this? Sangwon blushed at his blatant request. She turned around and said, it's better for you to be busy. When you're free, you're imagining things. Shi Fengju smiled and said, this is a matter of justice and human relations. How can it be imagining things? As he said this, he lifted Sangwon up horizontally. Sangwon cried out in alarm. She struggled anxiously and said, what are you doing? Let go of me. Shi Fengju hugged her even tighter. He smiled and said, what are you afraid of? This isn't the state capital of Qin. No one can control us. You must be tired from chatting with that bastard today. Why don't you save some energy for tonight? Sangwon blushed even more. She groaned softly and lay on his body without moving. Shi Fengju smiled happily. He saw that her pretty face was flushed with a gentle glow. Her eyes were watery and her red, soft, and full lips were slightly parted. It was indescribably charming and lovely. He couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. He lowered his head and kissed her gently on the cheek. Tonight he wouldn't let her go. Shi Fengju carried Sangwon all the way from the garden back to the residence. Along the way, the maidservants were all stunned when they saw this. They quickly bowed their heads and stepped aside. They were so shocked that they even forgot to salute. It was not until they had been gone for a long time that they dared to carefully raise their heads, straighten their backs, and gently exhale. They looked at each other. The young maidservants all blushed and were very embarrassed. The old women looked at each other and smiled maliciously. Sangwon was also very embarrassed. The last time he carried her like this, it was late at night. She was slightly drunk and didn't feel anything. This time, it was broad daylight and the maidservants saw it. She was afraid that the whole village would hear about it before tomorrow. Sangwon was angry, embarrassed, and excited. She lay in Shi Fengju's arms and didn't dare to raise her head. until he laughed softly above her. Wan Yang, we're in the room. But if you don't want to get down, I'll carry you. Sangwon was shocked and struggled to get down. She glanced at Luya, who chuckled. Luya quickly smiled and said, this servant will ask someone to fetch water to help master wash your face and hands. There's still some time before dinner. This servant will go and urge them later. She then led the maidservants away. It's all your fault. Tomorrow everyone will laugh at me. Sangwon's face was still red. Shifengju simply pulled her to sit on his lap and said with a smile, whoever dares to laugh at me will be driven out immediately. Others can only be envious. Sangwon laughed and felt a little better. She thought that since she had already lost face, she didn't mind losing face a little more. She let him hold her and gently leaned into his arms without struggling to get down. She raised her eyes and gently stared at his gentle and handsome features. A touch of tenderness floated in her heart. She only hoped that the years would be peaceful from now on. Shifengju sensed her gaze and lowered his head to smile at her. Is your husband good-looking? Sangwon smiled sweetly and nodded. Very good-looking. Shifengju lowered his head and kissed her for a long time. The next day, the two of them slept until almost noon before getting up. They didn't intend to stay in bed, but Shifengju was in high spirits last night. It was as if he wanted to make up for the homework that he had missed so many days ago. He hugged her and made love to her for most of the night before he fell asleep contentedly. After the last time, Sangwon closed her eyes and fell asleep. She didn't know how he cleaned her up. Chapter 270. When she woke up during the day, her body was still limp and weak. Before she was completely awake, she was pulled into the arms of the man beside her. He gently kissed her on the forehead and said with a low and hoarse voice, Wan Yang, did you sleep well? Sangwon turned her eyes in a daze and exclaimed, what time is it? The bright light in the room and the warm temperature in the air reminded her that it wasn't early anymore. Shifengju saw her struggling to get up and couldn't help but laugh. He held her in his arms and said with a smile, sleep for a while more and wake up in time for lunch. My wife, you can do whatever you want when we're outside. Don't worry about him. Sangwon was both angry and amused. She said, you've spoiled me. When we return to Qingzhou, don't blame me if I do something wrong. Why would I blame you? If you do something wrong, I'll naturally take responsibility for it. I just want you to be happy. Shifengju rubbed against her and smiled ambiguously. Wan Yang, did you have fun last night? Sangwon was so embarrassed that she lost all her strength. She hit him and said, I was afraid that you'd be tired out these past few days, so I kindly let you rest today. Who knew that you? Shifengju grabbed her hand and rubbed it on his face. He smiled and said, Wan Yang, I'm a man. Sangwon rolled her eyes at him. If you weren't a man, how could I marry you? Shifengju smiled and said, what nonsense am I talking about? Whether I'm a man or not, my Wan Yang should know better than anyone else. The more you talk, the less serious you are. Sangwon was so embarrassed that she hid in his arms. This person usually looked decent, but when he talked nonsense, he was better than anyone else. She didn't know where he heard it from. Come to think of it, what kind of person hadn't he come in contact with? He had probably heard even more ridiculous words than this. The words he said to her were probably filtered out. Shifengju laughed out loud and hugged her delicate body tightly in his arms. Touching her smooth skin, a faint sweet fragrance lingered around his nose. His mind swayed, and he almost couldn't help but press her down again. The two of them messed around for a while and got up. Sure enough, it was already noon. After washing up and having lunch, they spent half a day in the garden. The only interlude was the steward coming over with a bitter smile to ask for instructions, saying that the second young master wanted to invite the eldest young mistress over for a chat. Before the butler could finish his words, Shifengju's face darkened. He was so frightened that he swallowed the rest of his words and turned to look at Sangwon pitifully. Before Sangwon could say anything, Shifengju rushed over. If he feels bored and wants to find someone to chat with, you can just accompany him there. Wan Yang is his sister-in-law. Tell him to restrain himself. Why did these words seem to have a hidden meaning? The butler was slightly startled. Before he had time to think, Shifengju said, "Why aren't you leaving?" He was so frightened that he hurriedly left. In the evening, Shifengju took Sangwon out in a carriage. The two of them had dinner at the Misty Rain house by the West Lake, and then strolled into the city. Hangzhou was the wealthiest city in the world. At night, everywhere was brightly lit, and there were many shops with dazzling goods. People came and went, and it was as lively as it was during the day. There was no lack of goods here, especially all kinds of silk brocades, gold and silver ornaments, rouge and face powder, antique furnishings, and the most prosperous and famous, fashionable designs that could not be seen anywhere else. Rare and precious goods that could not be bought could all be found here. The two of them got off the carriage. Sangwon put on a gauze hat and walked hand in hand with Shifengju. Everywhere they passed, people would exclaim in admiration. Shifengju took her to an entire street that sold high-end goods. There weren't many people, but all the goods were exquisite. Shifengju wanted to pull her into a tall and majestic jewelry shop, but Sangwon smiled and said, "I can't even wear all the jewelry you gave me. What's the point of buying more? Let's go shopping somewhere else." Shifengju smiled and said, "Let's go in and take a look first. We have to bring some things home since we came out. You can pick a set for mother, second aunt and third aunt. Later, I'll take you to a shop owned by a Westerner. It's full of novel Western goods. I think you'll like it." Hearing him say this, Sangwon had no choice but to agree with a smile. The two of them went in together. The people who entered this shop weren't ordinary people. The shopkeeper and the shop assistants all had a pair of sharp eyes. Although the two of them didn't wear luxurious clothes, the shopkeeper glanced at Sangwon's hair bun and saw the half-blooming magnolia white jade hairpin. He hurriedly greeted them with a smile. "Madam, this Shangpin Lu is a famous shop in Hangzhou that has been around for more than 100 years. The things here are the best. Do you see anything you like?" Shifengju said with a smile. He leaned closer to her and whispered, "Wanyang, I don't think I've taken you to buy jewelry with me. You should pick a few things. Young master has good eyesight. Our Shangpin Lu's products are without a doubt. We have the best craftsmen and jewelry. The jewelry we make is unique and unique. You can't see it anywhere else. Even the things in the capital can't compare to ours." The shopkeeper chimed in with a smile on his face. Sangwon smiled at Shifengju. "Since you've said so, if I don't pick a few things, wouldn't I be letting you down?" Shifengju chuckled and said to the shopkeeper, "My madam might not be interested in ordinary things. If you have something good, take it out." Hearing his tone, he wanted to see his private collection of treasures. The shopkeeper was a little embarrassed. Although the people who entered the shop were all customers and ordinary people wouldn't step in, the private collection of treasures in their Shangpin Lu wasn't something that ordinary people could afford. It wasn't something that just anyone could look at. "There are a lot of good things on the counter here. Young master and madam, why don't you take a look first? Maybe there's something suitable." The shopkeeper was very enthusiastic as he led them to the shelves with a smile. The shelves in Shangpin Lu had already been replaced with Western glass. They were clean and transparent and could be seen at a glance. Every item was marked with a price. His intention was to let them look at the price first before saying anything. Shifengju understood his intention. He gently hugged Sangwon and said with a smile, "Madam, let's go take a look first." Sangwon didn't care. She smiled and said, "In," and walked over with him. Although it was late at night, the shop was brightly lit. It didn't affect the quality of the jewelry at all. The shopkeeper wasn't exaggerating. Gold, jade, and all kinds of gemstones were embedded in each other. The golden threads were coiled around the ornaments and the carvings were exceptionally delicate and exquisite. The shapes were also unique and ingenious. Matched with pearls, gemstones, jadeite, agate, and red coral, they were brilliant and dazzling. The shopkeeper carefully took out a phoenix head ornament with pearls in its mouth. "Madam is graceful and generous. This ornament is very suitable for madam. Why don't madam try it?" Sangwon and Shifengju looked over and saw the phoenix head looking back. Its wings were behind it, and it dragged 5 tail feathers of different shapes. The tail feathers were embedded with teardrop-shaped rubies, sapphires, and emeralds of the same size. The body of the phoenix was decorated with fine rice pearls and golden threads. The golden color set off the spotlessly white rice pearls and resplendent gemstones. The bottom of the ornament was supported by golden auspicious clouds. It was especially dazzling. Shi Fengju looked at Sangwon with a smile. Sangwon shook her head slightly and said with a smile, "It's too dazzling. I don't like this kind of ornament. Even if I buy it, I'm afraid I won't be able to wear it more than a few times. Moreover, I already have 4 or 5 ornaments with pearls in its mouth. I don't want it." Shi Fengju naturally agreed with her and signaled the shopkeeper to put it back. The shopkeeper introduced a few more ornaments, but Sangwon didn't like any of them. Shi Fengju smiled at the shopkeeper and said, "My madam doesn't like them. You can pick 2 of them for me. I'll bring them home as gifts for my 2 elders. Take us to the ones that are better." The shopkeeper saw that he was playing it down and felt a burst of joy in his heart. He picked a pair of emerald hibiscus hairpins and a pair of jade rabbit hairpins with auspicious grass in its mouth. Shi Fengju didn't even look at the price. He nodded and said, "I'll take these 2. In a moment, find me 2 exquisite boxes to put them in." The shopkeeper hurriedly agreed with a smile. He handed the items to the shop assistant and gave him some instructions. Only then did he lead Sangwon and Shi Fengju to the back hall. Shi Fengju said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "Your Shangpin Lu's rules are quite strict." The shopkeeper smiled and said, "Sir, please don't lower yourself to my level. To tell you the truth, there are a lot of swindlers these days. It's not easy to do business. Please forgive me if I've neglected you." "That's true. I've made things difficult for you." Shi Fengju smiled. "It's good that you understand." The shopkeeper hurriedly smiled. The shopkeeper seemed to want to make up for his previous neglect. He presented the best things in the shop. There were the latest and most exquisite ornaments. There were also some that were carefully preserved and handed down from ancient times. The shopkeeper introduced the items in an endless stream. He wanted to talk about each and every one of them to the heavens. Shi Fengju smiled and looked at Sangwon. "Madam, do you see anything that you like?" Sangwon smiled. She only took a set of Guanyin Bodhisattva's design. It was inlaid with gold inlaid with jade heart, hair covering, flower ornaments, flower hairpins, and so on. She smiled and said, "Can I buy these 2 and give them to Mother? I think Mother will like them." The shopkeeper hurriedly smiled and said, "Madam has good taste. This set of jade Guanyin ornaments is an item from the Tang dynasty's palace. It passed through the hands of our boss. Who knows which concubine has worn it? Look at the corner of each piece. It has the mark of the Tang dynasty's imperial workshop, and the mark of the famous craftsman, Yu Hezi. This Shinnon bead bracelet is also an antique item that is more than 200 years old. It has the entire set of Diamond Sutra engraved on it. It's perfect to buy it and give it to the elderly. This is a good thing for accumulating good karma. When the old madam sees it, she will definitely praise you for your filial piety." Sangwon listened and unconsciously nodded. She looked at Shi Fengju to ask for his opinion. "It's rare for you to be so considerate. Then let's buy it and take it back." Shi Fengju looked at her with a gentle gaze. The shopkeeper carefully picked out the 2 items and said with a smile, "The jade Guanyin's heart costs 160,000 taels. This Shinnon bead bracelet costs 80,000 taels. I won't tell the 2 of you the difference." Shi Fengju didn't comment but said, "Is there anything else? My madam hasn't picked anything that she's satisfied with yet." The shopkeeper suddenly felt a bit awkward. He had been in this business for nearly 30 years, and had long become a sophisticated person. He could see that this madam's mind wasn't on this. It was just that her husband insisted on picking something that she was satisfied with, and she didn't want to refuse his good intentions. After thinking for a moment, the shopkeeper's eyes suddenly lit up. He hurriedly said with a smile, "This little one almost forgot. We still have a good thing here. Maybe it can enter madam's eyes. Please wait a moment. This little one will go and get it." Chapter 271. "No." Shi Fengming hurriedly smiled and said, "In the future, there will be many things that I need your help with. How could I not be willing? He even said you. Shi Fengju seemed to be unable to remember when he had been so polite to him. He couldn't help but feel sour in his heart. He sat down in the carriage and sighed. Second brother, no matter what you see later, you have to listen to me. Don't worry, big brother. I will listen to you. I will definitely listen to you. Shi Fengming was full of excitement. How could he think of anything else? Shi Fengju couldn't bear to see him like a lackey, so he didn't say anything else. The carriage drove for less than an hour before stopping at a lavish restaurant called Willow Manor. This restaurant was built on the edge of West Lake between the green willows and peach trees. The surroundings were filled with fresh flowers and decorated with lake tie stones. A pond was dug in front of the door to draw water from West Lake into the restaurant. There were all kinds of water lilies and many waterfowl such as mandarin ducks and mallard ducks. The back of the restaurant was close to West Lake. When one pushed open the window and looked into the distance, one could see a vast expanse of mist and water. Let's go in, Shi Fengju said after getting off the carriage. Shi Fengming finally sensed that something was wrong. He looked at his big brother suspiciously, nodded, and followed his footsteps. Those who could dine here were all rich people. Hearing the sound of the carriage, the shopkeeper came out to greet them. Shi Fengju and many of his peers had dined here several times. The shopkeeper recognized him and hurriedly greeted him with a smile. Shi Fengju greeted him with a smile but didn't introduce Shi Fengming. Then, under the shopkeeper's personal guidance, they went to the private room on the second floor. The row of windows were wide open. As far as the eye could see, there was a silver light dancing on the surface of the lake. Pleasure boats floated on the surface of the lake slowly. They cut through the blue water, dragging out ripples like fish scales. The distant mountains spread out gently. They were green and solid, surrounding the vast lake. There were towers at the top of several mountains. Looking from afar, the scenery was profound and indescribable. Although the scenery was beautiful and the sight was enough to open one's heart, Shi Fengming did not have the leisure to linger around. He probed Shi Fengju with a smile. Big brother, did you arrange to meet Qing'er here? Shi Fengju withdrew his gaze and said with a smile. You can say that. Shi Fengming heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile. If I had known earlier, I would have invited sister-in-law over. The scenery here is not bad. I think sister-in-law will like it too. Shi Fengju snorted and said, Don't talk too much about your sister-in-law. She doesn't need you to tell her what she likes. Shi Fengming replied with an oh, feeling a little wronged. He thought to himself, Big brother's words are so jealous. Sister-in-law is obviously a decent woman. How could I have any thoughts about her? Bah, what nonsense am I thinking about? What does being a decent woman have to do with having thoughts? Eldest sister-in-law was indeed eldest sister-in-law. The waiter served a pot of good quality Longjing tea. Shi Fengju leisurely tasted the tea. Shi Fengming waited, but he felt a little restless. It had been a long time. Why hadn't Qing'er arrived yet? Could it be that she couldn't find the place? Big brother, why don't I go to the door to take a look and welcome Qing'er while I'm at it? Shi Fengming suddenly stood up. Sit down, Shi Fengju said lightly. Are you afraid that she can't find the place? Don't worry. Shi Fengming still wanted to fight, but when he met Shi Fengju's warning gaze, he remembered what he had promised him, and could only sit down unhappily. Not long after, footsteps and voices came from the private room beside them. Shi Fengju raised his eyebrows slightly, but he remained seated. Gradually, Shi Fengming's expression became more and more unsightly. He couldn't be more familiar with that voice. After living together for 2 years, he would recognize it even if it turned into ashes. The sound of a man and a woman flirting became more and more unbearable. The veins on Shi Fengming's forehead bulged, and his clenched fists trembled uncontrollably. He stood up abruptly and wanted to rush over. Shi Fengju grabbed his arm and warned him. Don't act recklessly. Have you forgotten what I said again? Why does this voice sound so similar? I want to see who it is. Shi Fengming gritted his teeth. His voice was filled with endless shock and pain. Shi Fengju stared at him with his deep eyes. You still haven't given up? Shi Fengming's face turned ghastly pale. He suddenly raised his head and stared at Shi Fengju with a burning gaze. You planned this, didn't you? It was you. Shi Fengju's expression didn't change. He said lightly, "Can you tell that she was forced?" As if to confirm Shi Fengju's words, Su Qing giggled at the right time. Her bell-like laughter filled Shi Fengming's eardrums. He heard it clearly. She giggled and said, "Sir, you're so annoying. You're always bullying me." Then the man's lecherous and disgusting voice was heard. "Haha. Annoying? Don't you like it when I bully you? The more I bully you, the more excited you get. Bastard." Shi Fengming couldn't bear it anymore and rushed forward. He felt as if his heart had been torn into 2 pieces. His chest was filled with indescribable resentment, and it was about to explode. "Second brother." Shi Fengju warned him in a low voice and grabbed him even harder. "How long are you going to make a fuss?" "Enough," Shi Fengming said angrily. "I treat you as my elder brother. I didn't expect you to scheme against me. This must be your trick, right? You look down on Qing. So you use such despicable means to break us up." Shi Fengju sneered. If it wasn't for her nature, how could she have turned to someone else so easily? "I did scheme against her, but she had to be willing to cooperate. You were under house arrest in the villa, and she never showed up. If you don't believe me, you can go back and ask the gatekeeper. She saw that she had no hope of marrying into our family, so it's normal for her to find someone else. Why can't you understand?" "I don't understand. I just don't understand. I'm not as scheming as you are." Shi Fengming shouted as he pushed Shi Fengju away. He rushed out of the private room and kicked open the door next door. "Eldest young master." Chang Huan's face turned pale, and she was at a loss. He had been following Su Qing for the past few days and grasped her movements. That was why he had made the arrangements in advance today. He was very clear about this matter. However, he hadn't expected the second young master to have such a strong reaction. "Let's go and take a look." Shi Fengju's expression was a little ugly, and he also walked out. At that moment, the private room next door fell into silence. The 2 people inside were stunned by Shi Fengming, the uninvited guest. Official Lu came back to his senses and slammed the table as he scolded. "Damn it! Where did this bastard come from? How dare you barge into my territory? Are you tired of living? What are you doing? Why didn't you guard the door properly? Why did you let any Tom, Dick, or Harry in?" He reprimanded the few servants who had hurriedly followed him in. A few of the servants hurriedly admitted their guilt, and hurriedly stepped forward to pull Shi Fengming away. Their mouths were filled with profanities and insults. Shi Fengming struggled, but he stared at Su Qing, without blinking. There was pain, shock, anger, expectation, and even pleading in his eyes. "Qing!" Shi Fengming shouted. "Qing, say something. Qing, as long as you say something, I'll leave immediately." Shi Fengming shook off the servants and stared at Su Qing. Official Lu was stunned. He signaled for everyone to let go of Shi Fengming with his eyes and deliberately pulled Su Qing, closer to him. He lifted Su Qing's smooth and delicate chin frivolously with one hand and said with a chuckle, "Baby, where did this poor man come from? Is he an old acquaintance of mine? Let go of her." Shi Fengming was furious and glared at Official Lu fiercely. His eyes were about to spurt fire. Senior Official Lu laughed heartily with an indescribable smug expression. He didn't say anything and only glanced at Su Qing, with interest. This girl's skill in bed was excellent. Her appearance was also outstanding. She was also intelligent and could talk. Officer Lu was very satisfied with her. Seeing other men come knocking on his door, he didn't feel angry. Instead, he felt a little excited. Qing had abandoned this man and turned to him. It could be seen that he was still very charming. "Qing, say something." Shi Fengming's eyes were filled with pain. The moment Su Qing saw him, her heart couldn't help but tremble. Although she was calm and realistic, she knew that Shi Fengming was sincere to her. Furthermore, the 2 of them had been together for more than 2 years and hundreds of days and nights. It would be a lie to say that she didn't miss him. However, what was the use of that? It was impossible for her to enter the Shi family's door. Not to mention the attitude of Second Lord Shi and Second Madam, she couldn't handle Shi Fengju. She couldn't enter the Shi family, and Shi Fengming didn't have any money. Was she supposed to lead a hard life with him? Just thinking about such a life was like a nightmare to her. How could she turn a nightmare into a reality? Life was bitter and short. The most important thing was to have a good life and enjoy it in time, not to work hard and run around just for 3 meals a day. In an instant, Su Qing'er calmed down. At the same time, she made a decision in her heart. She raised her eyebrows and smiled at Shi Fengming. Young master, didn't I say that we're finished? We're finished. Why are you still pestering me? You'd better leave quickly. I don't want to see you again. Official Lu was close to 50 years old, and wasn't as outstanding as him. However, it was enough that he could give her what she wanted. Shi Fengming looked as if he had been stabbed by a knife. He revealed an extremely sad and painful expression. You don't mean it, do you? You have your difficulties, don't you? Is this person threatening you and forcing you to do something? Is that right? Qing, tell me. I'll help you. I'll definitely help you. Official Lu sneered. Lad, do you know who I am? How dare you talk to me like that? How dare you? I won't bicker with you today for the sake of the beauty. If you don't get lost, I'll throw you into the West Lake to feed the turtles. Shi Fengming sneered. He didn't even glance at Official Lu. Instead, he looked at Su Qing'er fervently. Su Qing'er felt a little sad, but she immediately became tough again. She sneered and said disdainfully, "What nonsense are you talking about? I don't like you anymore. Don't you understand? Stop talking nonsense and sowing discord here. I won't bicker with you, so why don't you get lost? Otherwise, don't blame me for disregarding our old friendship." Chapter 272. Senior Official Lu laughed heartily. He lowered his head and kissed Su Qing'er's cheek gently. Then he said with a smile, "How can Qing'er disregard our old friendship? I can't wait to open my eyes." When Su Qing'er saw that Shi Fengming refused to leave, the pity in her heart quickly turned into impatience and resentment. If he wasn't incompetent and couldn't protect her from Shi Fengju, she wouldn't have made such a plan. Now that she had already found a way out, why was he still pestering her? What did he want? Go back with him? What a joke. If she went back with him, she would still be chased out. Since he couldn't protect her, why did he have to pretend to be a saint of love and make her feel disgusted? Su Qing'er's eyes flickered. She raised her eyebrows and smiled charmingly at Senior Official Lu. She gently pressed her fair palm against Senior Official Lu's chest, and took advantage of the situation to stand up. Then she leisurely walked toward Shi Fengming. Shi Fengming was overjoyed and his eyes flickered brightly. However, in the next second, there was a crisp slap as Su Qing'er gave him a ruthless slap on his cheek. The burning pain instantly assaulted him. Shi Fengming was stunned and said in disbelief, "Qing'er." Senior Official Lu slapped the table and laughed heartily. "Good job, Qing. You're so shrewish. I like your character." Upon seeing this, the servants also laughed and joined in the fun. They looked at Shi Fengming as if they were looking at a monkey who was playing tricks and amusing people. After the slap, Su Qing'er looked at Shi Fengming's shocked, painful, and incredulous expression. Suddenly, a great sense of pleasure and revenge surged in her heart. Did he know how hard it had been for her during those few days when he had been enjoying life in the manor? Did he care about her at all? Did he take the initiative to look for her? Now that she had found a new way out, he had jumped out. Was he deliberately not giving her a good life? Su Qing'er bit her lip and sneered. She raised her hand to slap her again, but someone caught her hand in midair and held her hand tightly. Su Qing'er was in so much pain that she frowned. She raised her eyes and glared at Shi Fengju angrily. When she saw his icy gaze and frosty expression, her heart couldn't help but tremble. She turned to look pitifully at Minister Lu for help. Shi Fengming only felt that the woman in front of him was so unfamiliar that he could not believe that she was the delicate woman who had lived with him for hundreds of days and nights. What else did he not understand? She was controlled by her brother, and would rather turn to that disgusting man for help than look at him. Shi Fengming turned around and rushed out. Chang Huan exclaimed, "Second young master." She hurriedly followed him. Shi Fengju pushed Su Qing'er hard, causing her to stumble and fall to the ground. She looked up at Shi Fengju with indescribable hatred in her eyes. "Minister." Tears welled up in Su Qing'er's eyes. Minister Lu didn't look at her, but hurriedly got up and went forward. He cupped his hands and smiled at Shi Fengju. Why is young Master Shi here? Haha. What a coincidence. Minister Lu. Shi Fengju cupped his hands and greeted him with a smile. He glanced at Su Qing, and said with a smile. My younger brother is insensible and has offended Minister Lu. Please be magnanimous and don't lower yourself to his level. High official Lu was startled and hastily said. Just now that young master is. High official Lu was full of regret. Rubbing his hands together, he said with a smile. This is really a case of the flood rushing against the Dragon King's temple. Young Master Shi, please don't blame me. What are you talking about? Shi Fengju smiled and said, my younger brother is young and insensible. He was rude first. How can you blame me? Minister Lu, please go ahead. I'll take my leave first. Okay. Minister Lu smiled. Let's meet again another day. Young master, please. He originally wanted to say that he would return Su Qing, to Shi Fengju, but it seemed that Shi Fengju was eager for his brother to be separated from Su Qing, Thus he tactfully didn't say anything. Official Lu personally sent Shi Fengju out of the private room. After seeing him leave, he turned around and went back inside. Su Qing, was secretly shocked. She hadn't expected Shi Fengju and Minister Lu to know each other. This didn't seem good for her. She had already gotten up from the ground. Her clothes were a little wrinkled and messy, and her hair was a little loose. When she saw Minister Lu, she endured the humiliation and called out in a low voice, Minister Lu. Minister Lu had been in the brothel for more than 20 years, and had seen many prostitutes. When he saw that Shi Fengju didn't care about Su Qing's appearance, he didn't have any scruples. It was rare for him to find a woman who was good in every aspect. If he didn't enjoy her, he would be letting himself down. Senior official Lu chuckled, and waved his hand to dismiss the servants. He then carried Su Qing, and placed her on his lap. He caressed her frightened face and said softly, Were you frightened just now, huh? When Su Qing, saw that he was still on her side, she was overjoyed. Panic flashed across her eyes. She hurriedly shook her head with a smile and said in a good-tempered manner, I'm fine. It's just that Shi Fengju is a narrow-minded person. I was rude today. If he holds a grudge and does something to harm you, wouldn't I have harmed you? Minister Lu laughed heartily and caressed her face as he said with a smile, Darling, you're really sensible and tactful. I didn't dote on you in vain. Don't worry. The Shi family has a lot of business dealings with the Lu family. Shi Fengju isn't that stupid. It's because of this that I feel uneasy. Su Qing sighed and said, If he holds a grudge and does something to harm you, wouldn't that be? Just pretend that I didn't say anything. It's not the first time you've been in the business world. How can you not know? Minister Lu chuckled and said, That's right. You shouldn't be worried about this. Don't let your imagination run wild. In any case, it won't be short of your share of benefits. Qing, come, let's have another drink. Don't let these trivial matters spoil our mood. Su Qing, naturally wanted to use Minister Lu to take revenge on the Shi family. However, when she saw that Minister Lu was disinterested and unwilling to talk about this matter again, she smiled sweetly and stopped the topic. She started to talk about romance with him. She secretly thought that there would be plenty of time in the future. However, she didn't know that she was just a pet in Minister Lu's eyes. Minister Lu had long seen that she was nothing in Shi Fengju's eyes. How could Shi Fengju incur enmity with Minister Lu because of her? Minister Lu also didn't believe that Shi Fengju would be so irrational. If Shi Fengju really wanted to take revenge, he would have returned her to him with both hands. There were so many women in the world. Was there a need to worry about not having enough? Shi Fengming ran all the way out of the restaurant, and stopped after running for a long time. He punched a willow tree on the shore of West Lake hatefully. Although the pain on his face wasn't as scorching as before, it still pierced his heart. He suddenly felt as if he had been dreaming for the entire day, and everything seemed to be in a blur. When his eldest brother let him out of the room in the morning, he was in a trance when he saw the familiar air outside that he hadn't seen for a long time. He was also in a trance after everything that had happened just now. Let's go back. A hand patted his shoulder. Shi Fengming dodged in disgust. Without turning his head, he said coldly, "Go away. I don't want to see you." This day would have come sooner or later, Shi Fengju said indifferently. "I just brought it forward." As he spoke, he explained the simple process of how he had designed it. Shi Fengming was in a fit of anger. Hearing that he dared to talk about such cruel, glorious deeds in front of him, he was so angry that sparks flew everywhere. He shouted angrily, "Enough! I knew it was you. I knew it must be you. If you hadn't forced Qing, she wouldn't have become like this. It's all your fault, Shi Fengju. How dare you say it in front of me?" Shi Fengju was also angry. He sneered. "If she didn't mean it, how could she have become like this? Did I forcefully tie her up and send her to Minister Liu? She kept saying that she wanted you to take her home. What do you think she wanted? If she really only cared about you, why didn't she want to go far away with you? Think carefully. Once you've spent all the money on you, how can she stay by your side? Stupid." Shi Fengming's lips moved. He wanted to refute, but he found that he couldn't refute at all. His mind was blank. He stared at the lake in front of him in a daze. He only felt that the jumping silver light was dazzling his eyes. Shi Fengju didn't have the mood to continue talking to him. He flicked his sleeves and said coldly to Chang Huan, "Follow second young master well. If he doesn't want to go back, tie him up and bring him back." After saying that, he turned and left. Shi Fengming was stunned. He snorted and turned his head away without saying anything. It wasn't until evening that Shi Fengming returned to the villa accompanied by Chang Huan. Shi Fengju and Sangwon had just finished dinner. When they heard the housekeeper's report, Shi Fengju subconsciously raised his foot to welcome them. However, he stopped abruptly and said coldly, "If he's back, then let him go. Take him down and settle him down. What's so important that he has to specially report it?" The housekeeper was stunned and looked awkwardly at Sangwon. Sangwon also found it funny and shook her head. She smiled and said, "Second young master is back. It seems that he has thought things through. This is a good thing. In 2 days, we'll set off for home together. We can also give second uncle and second aunt an explanation. It's better to invite him in and say a few words." Shi Fengju didn't say anything. Sangwon said to the housekeeper, "What are you waiting for? Quickly bring second young master in." Yes, yes." The housekeeper hurriedly agreed and turned to leave. A moment later, Shi Fengming followed in. His expression was calm, and he even knew to go forward and greet them. "Eldest brother, eldest sister-in-law, you're willing to come back? I thought that you would only be willing to come back if Chang Huan tied you up with a rope." Shi Fengju said unhappily. Sangwon pushed him and said with a smile, "Second young master, please take a seat. You haven't eaten dinner yet, right? I'll have the kitchen prepare the food." "There's no need, eldest sister-in-law." Shi Fengming was a little dispirited. He sat down absent-mindedly and said, "I'm not hungry. I don't want to eat anything." Seeing him like this, Sangwon knew that he must be sad, so she didn't say anything else. She heard Shi Fengming say, "I wonder if eldest brother still has any unfinished business here? If not, let's set off for Qingzhou as soon as possible. I haven't seen father and mother for a long time. I also miss them." "You still know how to miss them?" Shi Fengju snorted. When he saw Sangwon's gentle gaze looking at him, he forcibly stopped himself from ridiculing him. He nodded and said, "There's nothing else on my side. Let's set off in 2 days." "Okay." Shi Fengming nodded and said, "There's something I want to ask eldest brother for help with. Eldest brother, please help me." Chapter 273. Shi Fengju frowned slightly. Shi Fengming smiled and said, "Big brother, don't think too much. It's not what you think." Shi Fengju saw that Shi Fengming was listless like a frosted eggplant. He was still immersed in the shock and hadn't recovered yet. However, it seemed that he had accepted the truth. His expression softened. "Tell me what it is. I will help you if I can." Shi Fengming smiled gently and his expression suddenly turned cold. "I want to divorce Zhou Jingyi. When the time comes, please don't stand on my parents' side." What? Not only Shi Fengju, but even Sangwon was shocked. The husband and wife looked at each other and wondered if Shi Fengming's brain was damaged. Why was he suddenly involved with Zhou Jingyi again? Why? Shi Fengju asked. There's no reason. Shi Fengming vented his anger and said, I just don't like her and I want to divorce her. It doesn't matter who my parents marry, but it can't be her. Lao. What are you thinking in that head of yours? Shi Fengju was still confused, but Sangwon vaguely understood and could not help but sigh to herself. Because of Su Qing's matter, Shi Fengming couldn't get rid of his anger, so he vented his anger on Jingyi. So what if Jingyi was innocent? He just couldn't stand it, couldn't stand it. Big brother, as long as you and eldest aunt don't care about this matter, I will have a way to persuade my parents. Why? Shi Fengming also wanted to ask others why. He didn't know, but he knew that he would feel more comfortable if he did so. As long as eldest aunt and big brother didn't interfere, his parents would be overjoyed when they saw that he was willing to go back. Especially his mother. There was no reason not to agree to such a small request. Nonsense. Shi Fengju was so angry that he almost couldn't speak. He reprimanded him. You're not a 3-year-old child anymore. How can you act so disorderly? It's obvious that our Shi family let the Zhou family down first. To put it bluntly, you let the Zhou family down. She didn't say anything, but you want to divorce her? Let me ask you. What reason do you have to divorce your wife? Do you think this is child's play? You think you can just break it off like that? Do you think the Zhou clan is a pushover that you can bully as you please? Why do you have so many tricks up your sleeve? There is no end to this. Shi Fengming snorted and said, Didn't you say that Madame Zhou brought people to our house to make a fuss about a divorce? I'm just fulfilling their wishes. What's wrong with everyone being happy? Shi Fengju said coldly. Isn't it because of you that she's making a fuss about a divorce? But since you want to go back, this matter will naturally come to an end. If you divorce your sister-in-law for no reason, what will she do in the future? The Zhou family would never agree. You'd better behave yourself. However, Shi Fengming was determined and stubbornly said, What if the Zhou family is willing? Impossible, Shi Fengju said without thinking. The Zhou family was also a big family. If a young lady was divorced for no reason, it would inevitably affect the marriage of the unmarried women in the family. Unless it was absolutely necessary, it would not go to this step. Even when Madame Zhou came to make a fuss, she was so angry that she wanted to vent her anger. Humph, Shi Fengming sneered. That's hard to say. Nothing is absolute in this world. Big brother, you used to like to say these words. Shi Fengju stared at him for a moment and said, Say it, what do you want to do now? You are indeed big brother. You know me so well. I really can't hide anything from big brother. Shi Fengming laughed and said, It's simple. When I get home, I'll say that I have tuberculosis and will die soon. I don't believe that the Zhou family won't agree to a divorce when they find out. Humph, I'm afraid they'll be even more anxious than us. You. Shi Fengju was both amused and infuriated. What is in your head? You can even think of such a rotten idea. You're simply fooling around. Shi Fengming did not feel that he was fooling around at all. He said with conviction. Anyway, I've already made up my mind. After saying that, he sneered and said lazily, Sister-in-law, didn't you say that Zhou Jingyi was very good to me and missed me? Ha, I want to see if it's true or not. When she heard that I was going to die, she might run away faster than anyone else. There's no good woman in this world. Shi Fengming's heart suddenly ached, and he started to hate her. Su Qing was such a heartless and hypocritical woman. He would hate her for the rest of his life. What nonsense are you talking about? Shi Fengju glared at him unhappily, but his heart softened. Shi Fengming was a simple-minded person. How could he be Su Qing's opponent? It wasn't strange that he was infatuated with Su Qing, and was hell-bent on her. She was putting on a show, but he was putting on a show for real. When the show ended, how could it not be a big blow to him? He had resentment and hatred in his heart, and he had to find a place to vent it. When Shi Fengming saw that Big Brother's expression wasn't too good, he seemed to have suddenly remembered something. He said hurriedly, Sister-in-law, don't be calculative with me. I didn't mean to talk about you. Please forgive me for speaking without thinking. Sangwon smiled. Second young master, you don't have to be like this. You didn't mean what you said. Why would I put the blame on myself for no reason? However, I think you've underestimated Jingyi. I've interacted with her a lot, so I know a little about her temperament. I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Shi Fengming was stunned and he sneered. Sister-in-law, don't try to persuade me. In any case, I have to do this. I don't treat her well, and we've only interacted for a few days. People who spend day and night with each other can change at any time, let alone me and her. Maybe she wanted to leave long ago, but she didn't say it out loud. Otherwise, why would her mother and sister-in-law come to our house to make a fuss? I think she instigated it behind the scenes. I've given the Zhou family a way out this time. They might even be grateful to me. Although it was almost impossible to cure tuberculosis, there was a possibility that it could be cured. After the divorce, his illness would slowly recover. This was God's will. At that time, everything would be settled, and everyone would be clean. Shi Fengju sighed softly. If you're really determined to do this, I won't stop you. So be it. Su Qing had completely left his life, but to a certain extent, Zhou Jingyi had a special connection with Su Qing. When he saw Zhou Jingyi, he would most likely think of Su Qing, which was also a kind of torture for him. Well, it was good to get a divorce. It could be considered a complete break with the past. As for the Zhou family, as he had said, they would probably be willing to give them a way out. Everyone was happy. Thank you, big brother. Shi Fengming smiled and thanked him with cupped hands. But what if Jingyi refuses to leave? Sangwon suddenly said faintly. I don't believe it. Shi Fengming smiled and shook his head. There wouldn't be such a foolish woman in the world. Unless you tell her that I'm acting sister-in-law, Shi Fengming added. What nonsense are you talking about? Shi Fengju and Sangwon said at the same time. Sangwon didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This person's character was really straightforward. How could he say anything? I promise that I won't tell her. Don't worry about that. If I tell her, the Zhou family will inevitably know. If the Zhou family makes a fuss because of this, where will our Shi family's face go? No matter how foolish I am, I won't do such a thing. Sangwon said with a smile. Shi Fengju glared at Shi Fengming unhappily. Shi Fengming was relieved and said with a smile. Sister-in-law, what you said is very reasonable. I didn't think so much. Then tell me, what if Jingyi refuses to leave? What will you do then? Sangwon continued to ask. Refuse to leave? Shi Fengming raised his eyebrows and said with a smile. Could it be that she likes to be a widow? If she really liked to be a widow, she couldn't really die, right? This was really a difficult problem. Shi Fengming had a headache for a moment. He wanted to stubbornly insist that she wouldn't. But what if there was really such a possibility? Sister-in-law kept asking and it seemed that she wouldn't give up. He couldn't not say anything. If she insists on not leaving, then she really has you in her heart. In the future, you will treat her well. How about it? Sangwon said lightly. Shi Fengju glanced at Sangwon, and a look of deep thought flashed across his eyes. Seeing that Shi Fengming was silent, Shi Fengju also said, Your sister-in-law is right. If sister-in-law really does that, second brother, treat her well in the future. She's willing to give up her life for you. Is it so difficult for you to treat her well? You're the one who's taking advantage of her. Taking advantage? Was there anyone who said that? Moreover, how was this taking advantage? Whoever wanted to take advantage of this so-called advantage could take it. In any case, he didn't care. Shi Fengming felt a little wronged. His eldest brother refused to accept it, and continued to remain silent. Sangwon sneered and said, Aren't you very confident that she will leave? Since that's the case, what are you afraid of if you agree? It's just a temporary sentence. Shi Fengming's eyes lit up. That's right. In any case, this kind of situation was impossible. If he agreed, it would only take a sentence. When she left, wouldn't everything be resolved? What was he conflicted about? She's sister-in-law after all. Shi Fengming smiled in an incomparably relaxed manner. A sentence woke me up from my dream. Good. If she can really do that, I'll give in to her. In any case, I won't let her suffer in the future. These words were personally said by second young master. Second young master, don't go back on your words. Sangwon said with a smile. Shi Fengming snorted and said, of course I'll keep my words. When the time comes, I'll let her leave the Shi family happily. Shi Fengming was sure that his prediction wouldn't be wrong. Even if that woman really had the intention of following the 3 obedience and 4 virtues, how could her parents allow her to do as she pleased? They would definitely force her to leave. Sangwon smiled and said, I believe that second young master will do as he says. Soon they set off for Qingzhou. As they wanted to bring Shi Fengming home as soon as possible, the return journey was different from when they came. They rushed all the way and arrived at Qingzhou in just a few days. Everyone in the household had already received a report from the servants. When they knew that Shi Fengming was coming back, second Lord Shi and second Old Mistress Shi were naturally overjoyed. Wang and third Old Master Shi also heaved a sigh of relief and were happy for them. The whole household was waiting for their carriage to enter the city. Chapter 274. When they finally returned to the household, Shi Fengming knelt in front of his parents with a face full of shame. Second Old Mistress Shi had already pulled him into her arms and started crying. She scolded him as she cried, feeling heartache, joy and anger. Shi Fengming's heart was also sour. Seeing his mother's haggard face and her hair that was obviously much whiter than 2 years ago, he felt even more stifled. The mother and son hugged each other and cried bitterly. It took a while for everyone to calm them down. Only then did second Old Mistress Shi and her husband have the time to thank Shi Fengjiu, and happily brought their son back. Second Old Mistress Shi ordered the servants to boil water with grapefruit leaves for her son to wash away the bad luck. She also ordered the servants to prepare incense and candles for him to go to the ancestral hall, to worship the ancestors after he was clean. Shi Fengjiu and Sangwon also returned to Ning Garden to change and freshen up. Wang glanced at them, but did not say anything. Nanny Li, Jida, and the others welcomed their master back. They all came up to greet her, and it was very lively. They were back to this place again. Looking at the familiar and unchanged furnishings in the house, Sangwon felt a little absent-minded. Wan Yang, I'm here. Shi Fengjiu held her hand and smiled. If mother brings up the past again, we'll go out for a walk again. Sangwon heard him and laughed. Although she did not take his words seriously, she felt a lot more relaxed. There should be a period of good days ahead, right? With Shi Fengming's side in chaos, who in the household would have the time to care about other things? There wasn't a second branch where her nephew's life and death was unknown, and the eldest aunt was in a hurry to find a second wife for her son. Shi Fengming's actions were swift. He suddenly fainted on the second day and was bedridden in less than 2 days. He coughed incessantly, his face was sallow, his spirit was low, and his body was hot and cold. According to the doctor's diagnosis, it was tuberculosis. Wang and the rest were all shocked, and second Old Mistress of the Shi family was crying her heart out. Sangwon and the rest hurriedly supported her, and tried to persuade her. Sangwon secretly praised in her heart. Second Old Mistress Shi must really dislike Zhou Jingyi. Compared to her son, I'm afraid she's even more eager for Zhou Jingyi to leave. The cooperation between mother and son is truly flawless. Afraid that Shi Fengming's tuberculosis would spread to everyone, the entire residence was disinfected. Shi Fengming also moved to a small courtyard called Biluo Pavilion in the northwest corner of the back garden to live. An old maid and a servant girl were sent to serve him. The old maid and servant girl used cotton cloth to cover their mouths and noses when they went in and out. The small courtyard was disinfected once a day. The news quickly spread to the Zhou family. Everyone in the Zhou family was shocked. Zhou Jingyi's face turned pale, and she almost fell. This time, it was still Mrs. Lin who went to the Zhou family. Mrs. Lin wiped her tears and said, "Poor second young master. It was not easy for him to come back. The family did not even have time to celebrate for 2 days, but he had to encounter such a thing. Second young mistress, you have to go back with the old slave this time. If you are late, I'm afraid that you won't even be able to see him for the last time." Zhou Jingyi wiped her tears and nodded. "Mrs. Lin, please wait for a moment. Let me pack up and go back with you. Husband, he will be fine. Old Mistress Zhou and Old Master Zhou looked at each other and sighed in their hearts. Old Mistress Zhou sighed with anger and hatred. That scoundrel, he was fine when he was having fun outside. The moment he came back, he created such a mess. What does he mean by this? Isn't he trying to harm my daughter? What sin have I committed? Why is my daughter's life so bitter? Mrs. Lin, you should go back first. I will personally bring Jingyi there tomorrow. I really didn't expect this. How did my son-in-law get such a disease? As his mother-in-law, I have to go and take a look before I can be at ease. My poor daughter, why is her life so bitter? Old Mistress Zhou sighed. Mother! How could Zhou Jinyi wait any longer? Her eyes were red as she sobbed. You can go tomorrow. I want to go back with Mrs. Lin now. What nonsense are you saying? Old Mistress Zhou frowned. We will leave tomorrow morning. What's wrong with waiting one more day? What will happen if you don't accompany me? Old Mistress Zhou still had some resentment in her heart. The Shi family only sent a mother to pick her up. Even the housekeeper did not come. How could she be at ease? No. I'll leave now. Zhou Jinyi was extremely stubborn this time. She stood up and said, Mrs. Lin, please wait for a moment. I'll pack up and come over. Mrs. Lin was naturally on her mistress' side. Seeing old Mistress Zhou's ambiguous attitude and her constant delay, it was obvious that she had other plans in mind. Thus she was unhappy. Hearing Zhou Jinyi's words, she felt relieved. Without even looking at old Mistress Zhou, she nodded and said, Yes, second young mistress. Old slave will wait for second young mistress. Zhou Jinyi nodded and turned to pack her clothes. You. Old Mistress Zhou was so angry that her eyes widened. That's enough, that's enough. Old Master Zhou tugged at his wife's sleeves and said, It's normal for a daughter to be worried about her son-in-law when he's so sick. Why leave her alone to worry for the night? Let her go. I'll go with you tomorrow to take a look. Old Mistress Zhou was even more unhappy when she heard her husband's words. She could not care less in her anger and sneered. My daughter is really a fool. She's worried about him, but when he was having fun outside, did he even think about her for a moment? Mrs. Lin's face turned ugly. She lowered her eyes and pretended that she did not hear anything. Old Master Zhou quickly stopped her and asked someone to bring Mrs. Lin down to drink tea. Mrs. Lin secretly heaved a sigh of relief and quickly thanked him. How can you say such things at a time like this? Lord Zhou was displeased. Old Mistress Zhou also questioned angrily. Did I say something wrong? If it wasn't at this time, I wouldn't have said that. This is really retribution. Old Master Zhou said angrily. Enough, stop talking. Retribution? Then what about our daughter? You should be clear about who this retribution belongs to. Old Mistress Zhou was stunned and her eyes turned red. My daughter is innocent. She can't be implicated for no reason. What else is there to say now that things have come to this? It's better to get a divorce as soon as possible. You're crazy. Old Master Zhou frowned. A divorce can't happen at this time. Our son-in-law's life is unknown, and our daughter wants a divorce. If this spreads out, what about our reputation? What's the use of having a reputation? Old Mistress Zhou said with tears in her eyes. Isn't our daughter pitiful enough? It's useless. If you don't want her to live in the future, you can make a fuss and leave now. Old Master Zhou flicked his sleeves. Why not? Old Mistress Zhou said. It's the Shi family who has let our daughter down. Now that their son is not going to live and our daughter doesn't have any children, are we going to guard her for the rest of her life? If our son-in-law is loyal, it's fine. But in reality, he's such a heartless person. How can I accept this? Do you think I'm willing? In any case, this matter can't be brought up now. If you don't want to harm our daughter, you better not add to the mess. Old Master Zhou said angrily. How am I adding to the mess? Father, mother. Calm down. Young Master Zhou sighed. Let's see how things go tomorrow. Who knows, maybe brother-in-law's luck is great, and he can survive this ordeal. Before young Master Zhou could finish, old Mistress Zhou spat and said, Luck is great? He's such a heartless and unscrupulous person. It's so unfair. Are you done yet? Old Master Zhou said helplessly. I won't let this matter go so easily. My daughter can't be wronged for the rest of her life. Mother, from what I see, sister's meaning seems to be. What does she know? Children are impulsive. Her intentions can't be taken seriously. Old Mistress Zhou was even angrier. Thinking of her daughter's useless appearance, she felt her chest tighten. While they were arguing, Zhou Jingyi came in with Su Qing and Su Bai. Her eyes were red as she said goodbye to her father, mother, brother, and sister-in-law. Madame Zhou saw that in the blink of an eye she had changed into a set of bean green plain clothes, and that the golden hairpin in her hair buyao had also been replaced with a simple jade hairpin. She could not help but feel angry. She was about to scold her. But when she saw her sad expression and teary eyes, she felt her heart ache. She let out a long sigh and turned her face away. Fine, a married daughter is like spilled water. Since you're thinking about it, then go. In your heart, father and mother are not as important as that heartless man. Mother! How could Zhou Jingyi endure such harsh words? She sobbed and ran forward to kneel in old Mistress Zhou's arms. Tears flowed down and her thin shoulders trembled. Mother, don't say that. Your daughter's heart hurts. Look at yourself. Jingyi is already sad enough. Don't rub salt on her wound. She didn't say anything, so why bother? Old Master Zhou sighed. So it's me who worried for nothing. Old Mistress Zhou became angry again and glared at her husband. Seeing her daughter's pitiful face full of tears, she couldn't help but feel her heart ache. She sighed and didn't say anything else. Old Mistress Zhou raised her handkerchief and gently wiped away the tears on Zhou Jingyi's face. She stroked her hair and sighed softly. Since you insist on going, Mother won't stop you. But his illness is contagious. You have to be careful. Don't get too close and don't stay too long by his side. You have to know how to protect yourself, understand? My daughter, you're Mother's flesh and blood. Even if you don't think for yourself, you have to think for Mother. If something happens to you, how can Mother live? Old Mistress Zhou's tears rolled down as she spoke. Old Master Zhou glanced at the door and thought that it was fortunate that the Shi family wasn't here. Otherwise, his daughter's days back home would definitely be difficult. I know. Mother, don't worry. Zhou Jingyi's heart ached. Mother is relieved to hear that. Old Mistress Zhou forced a smile. She reminded Su Qing and Su Bai again before letting Zhou Jingyi go. Zhou Jingyi and Nanny Lin left the Zhou residence, and the carriage sped towards Qingzhou City. On the way, Zhou Jingyi couldn't help but ask Nanny Lin about Shi Fengming's situation. When she finished listening, she felt even more anxious and sad. She couldn't help but think to herself, is my life really so bitter? I married someone I liked at first sight. I was originally rejoicing that the heavens took pity on me. Who knew that his heart already belonged to someone else? He didn't hesitate to abandon me and leave home. He left for 2 years. When he came back, we could have started a new life together and live a good life together. Who knew that it would be a separation of life and death? Zhou Jingyi's expression was sad and she couldn't help but cry again. Chapter 275. Nanny Lin could not bear to see her like this and sighed. Second young mistress, don't be too sad. Our second young master is blessed, he will definitely get through this. Zhou Jingyi forced a smile and nodded. Nanny Lin is right, he will be fine. Returning to her in-laws' house, Zhou Jingyi hurriedly went to greet her in-laws. When second old mistress Shi saw her plain clothes and slightly swollen eyes, she was slightly satisfied. However, since her son had already made up his mind to not want this woman, she could not be bothered to give her any face. Seeing her bow, second old mistress Shi lazily raised her hand. It's good that you're back, get up. Zhou Jingyi got up and asked, Father, Mother, I heard from Nanny Lin that my husband is staying at Bailuo Pavilion. I want to see him now. I will move into Su Xian Pavilion tomorrow. It will be more convenient for me to take care of him. No need. How could second old mistress Shi allow her to add to her son's troubles? She immediately rejected her. There are proper servants there to take care of him. It's better if you don't go. You've already done your best to visit him twice. Mother. Zhou Jingyi insisted. Let me go. I want to take care of my husband personally. Second old mistress Shi frowned and looked at her from head to toe, thinking, Why are you putting on an act here? My son and you don't have any feelings for each other. Why do you have to put on an act like this? How can that be? Second old mistress sure continued to reject. If anything happens to you, our sure family will be even more sorry to you. This matter is settled since you're back, just stay in Xiao garden. Second old mistress sure could only hope that the Zhou couple would hurry over, so that she could bring up the matter of the divorce. It was naturally inconvenient for the Zhou family to bring up this matter, but the Sure family was magnanimous. If they were to bring it up, not only would they not attract criticism, they would even be praised. Moreover, old Mistress Zhou might even clap her hands in joy. Mother, I beg of you, let me go. Or else, I won't feel at ease. I'll be careful, nothing will happen. Mother. Zhou Jingyi pleaded bitterly. How could second old mistress Sure let her go? She immediately became impatient, but second Lord Sure could not stand it anymore and sighed. Let my daughter-in-law go. It's rare for her to show her sincerity. Maybe my son will be happy to see her by his side and get better. The second Lord Sure didn't know about this, and Rizhong was extremely worried. Seeing his daughter-in-law being so considerate, he was very touched. Thank you, father. Zhou Jinyi was overjoyed. No, I say, what's wrong with you? The second Lord Sure lost his temper and said with a dark face. In the past, you always complained that your daughter-in-law was not good and virtuous. Now that she's willing to take care of your son, you're stopping her. What are you trying to do? Second old mistress Sure was already afraid of her husband. Hearing him say that, her heart skipped a beat and she could not help but feel guilty. In the past, if her daughter-in-law was willing to take care of her sick son, she would have been more than willing. Even if she didn't want to, she would have forced her to go. If he continued to obstruct them and aroused master's suspicions, then things would be bad. Second old mistress Sure said. Do you think I don't want my daughter-in-law to take care of my son? This way, I can feel more at ease. But if our in-laws find out about this, they will definitely blame us. If anything happens to my daughter-in-law, how are we going to explain it to them? How about this? When our in-laws come, I won't have any objections if they agree. The second Lord Sure felt that her words made sense, so he said to Zhou Jinyi, your mother-in-law is right, this is for the best. You just have to go and take a look, the rest can wait. Zhou Jinyi heaved a sigh of relief and said, Father, mother, don't worry. My father and mother asked me to come back to take care of my husband. They definitely won't have any objections. If you don't believe me, we can ask them when they come tomorrow. It's rare for our in-laws to be so considerate. Second old master Sure sighed and nodded his head. If that's the case, I won't stop you from doing what you want. Go on. Remember to be careful and take care of yourself first. Daughter-in-law, father will say something to you today. After Feng Ming gets through this, if he dares to let you down again, I will break his legs. Father. Zhou Jinyi's gaze was complicated. Second old mistress Sure, on the other hand, glared at her husband unhappily and pulled a long face. Zhou Jinyi bade farewell to the two of them, and returned to Xiao Garden to pack up before bringing Su Qing to Bailuo Pavilion. As they walked, the closer they got, the more uneasy she felt and her footsteps became messy. 2 years, she had not seen him for 2 years. She did not know how he looked like when she saw him again. Tuberculosis? Would he be tortured badly by his illness? Zhou Jinyi's legs went soft and she stumbled and almost fell. Su Qing hurriedly supported her. Second young mistress, why don't you rest for a while? Zhou Jinyi shook her head. Let's go. Even though she was nervous and uneasy, the earlier she saw him the better. Bailuo Pavilion was right in front of her. Zhou Jinyi took a deep breath and gently pushed the door open. A strange smell of medicine wafted over and Zhou Jinyi's heart ached, almost tearing up. He was right in front of her, but was he still the same person she first met? Second young mistress. Why are you here? A maidservant lifted the curtain and walked out of the room. When she saw the master and servant, she was startled and hurriedly pulled down the veil covering her face, and went forward to greet them. Zhou Jinyi recognized this maidservant. It was Xiao Chui, who served her mother-in-law. How is second young master? Is he all right? Zhou Jini nodded and asked. Xiao Chui said. I just fed second young master some medicine, and he's lying down now. He looks quite energetic. Second young mistress, do you want to go in? Or, do you want to look outside the window? I'll go in and take a look. Xiao Chui placed the tray with the bowl of medicine on the stone table in the courtyard and said with a smile, There's a clean veil in the side room and some medicine for washing your hands. This servant will bring you there. Zhou Jini nodded her head and instructed Su Qing. You wait outside. I'll go in alone. Su Qing and Su Bai were both maidservants brought along by her maternal family. When they saw that their young master did not like their young miss, they instinctively rejected Shi Fengming. When they heard that they did not need to go in, they were eager and hurriedly said, Second young mistress, please come out after taking a look. Don't disturb second young master's rest. This servant will wait for you outside. Zhou Jini nodded and followed Xiao Chui. After tidying up, she went in and saw Shi Fengming lying on the bed. His pale and sallow face looked very haggard. He coughed and frowned from time to time, looking very painful. Coupled with the faint smell of medicine in the room, Zhou Jinyi's heart ached. She went forward and asked softly, Husband, are you all right? Xiao Chui glanced at him and quietly retreated. Shi Fengming did not expect that pretending to be ill with tuberculosis would be so difficult. Not only was he forced to move to a remote and simple courtyard, but he also had to lie in bed all day long and smell the unpleasant smell of medicine and drink medicine. Although Shi Fengjiu had people tamper with the medicine, and it was harmless to the body, the taste of the medicine made Shi Fengming suffer unspeakably. It was better to die than to live. He was sure that his eldest brother must have taken the opportunity to punish him and deliberately gave him such a difficult medicine to swallow. Seeing Zhou Jini enter with tears in her eyes, Shi Fengming was secretly vigilant. He knew that it was time to sing. Wasn't it all because of her that he was where he was today? If she had agreed to divorce and return to the Zhou family, wouldn't he have suffered a lot less? Shi Fengming was unhappy and his expression became uglier. He frowned and said faintly, It's you. What are you doing here? This is not a place for you to come. Get out. Husband. Zhou Jinyi's heart ached when she heard him talk to her like this. She could not help but cry. She choked and said, I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay here with you. Don't worry, you'll definitely get better. Definitely. It was not that she did not resent him. The more she loved him, the deeper her resentment. However, he was still her husband. Thinking back to the moment when he lifted her red veil, and looking at the person in front of her now, Zhou Jinyi only felt like her heart was being twisted by a knife. All her resentment disappeared. As long as he could get better, she was willing to do anything. Shi Fengming was stunned. He subconsciously tightened his grip on the thin blanket. He was slightly annoyed. Did she have to be so affectionate? Did she have to cry like this? He never had any feelings for her, nor did he give her a good face. He really didn't know how she could call him husband so smoothly, but to his ears, it was incomparably ear-piercing. My illness is contagious. You'd better leave. Don't stay here. What if? I won't. Zhou Jini shook her head and gently interrupted him. I'll be careful. Moreover, I'm not afraid. Shi Fengming almost choked. After a moment he said in a muffled voice, But I don't want to implicate you and delay you. Zhou Jini, I think we should divorce. Go back to your Zhou family and find a good family to marry in the future. Don't worry, our Shi family will not treat you unfairly. Take all your dowry with you. Other than that, I'll ask my parents to compensate you with a sum of money. It's enough for you to marry a husband you like and live a good life. No, I don't want to. I won't leave. Zhou Jini heard him say this and felt sad, sour, touched, and happy. Was he thinking for her? He had already become like this and he was still thinking for her? It could be seen that he still had her in his heart. It could be seen that he had turned over a new leaf. She had always been thinking about him. And now that he was regretting his decision, how could she be a heartless person and leave him when he needed her the most? Don't worry. Zhou Jini could not help but hold his hand tightly and said in a trembling voice, I won't leave you, I won't. If the heavens are really so heartless, I will protect you for the rest of my life. I will never be disloyal. A soft and delicate hand suddenly held his palm. The cool touch brought about a slight numbing itch. Shi Fengming suddenly froze and felt very uncomfortable. He struggled slightly, but Zhou Jinyi's emotions were agitated and she held him tightly. Moreover, he was a patient, and it was inconvenient for him to use force, so he could only let her hold him. Chapter 276. Why are you doing this? Shi Fengming was a little irritated. He frowned and said, Anyway, I've made up my mind. You can go back. If you're not willing to divorce, I'll divorce you. Think about it carefully. Zhou Jingyi's face suddenly turned pale as she stared at him in a daze. Shi Fengming saw that she was frightened by him and felt slightly relieved. He said slowly, It's settled then. Think about it carefully, and you'll know that you're not at a disadvantage. Go back. Don't let your imagination run wild. Zhou Jingyi only thought that he was talking nonsense because he was sick. She said gently, You can rest at ease and recuperate. Husband, although I'm not talented or virtuous, I know the principle of being faithful to one person until the end. Since we're husband and wife, we should share joys and sorrows. You should recuperate first. I won't leave the Shi family. Shi Fengming was angry and sneered. Since that's the case, you can wait for the divorce letter. Zhou Jingyi shook her head calmly. If you really hate me so much, you can divorce me after you've recovered. But even if you want to divorce me now, I can't. I'd rather die than leave the Shi family. Husband, I've been stubborn since I was young. My parents and brothers can't force me to change my decision. If you want to force me to leave first, you can divorce me. Shi Fengming was dumbfounded. Have a good rest first. I'll come and accompany you later. Zhou Jingyi gently let go of his hand, tucked him in, and got up to leave. Shi Fengming watched her leave and threw himself on the bed with hatred. What's wrong with this woman? What kind of people did I meet? Why are they so stubborn? Zhou Jingyi didn't care about him. She called Xiao Chui and the old woman over and asked about Shi Fengming's situation in detail. She asked about his decoction of medicine and diet, and instructed that she would do it personally in the future. After returning to Xiu Garden, Zhou Jingyi tidied up before going to visit Wang, third old mistress Shi, and Sangwan. She stayed at Sangwan's place for a while, and told Sangwan that she wanted to move to Su Xian Pavilion. Speaking of Shi Fengming, she couldn't help but cry again. She asked them in detail how they met Shi Fengming in Hangzhou, and asked about Su Qing. After some hesitation, Sangwan couldn't help but secretly feel guilty when she saw her so sad. She felt that Shi Fengming was absurd and hateful. As one of the few people who knew the truth, she felt even more guilty and guilty. Comforting Zhou Jingyi was difficult for her, and she did not know what to say. Fortunately, Zhou Jinyi's mind was already in a mess. How could she have the mood to think about other things? He didn't notice anything strange, and was filled with gratitude towards her and Shi Fengju. Sangwan froze when she heard Zhou Jinyi ask about Su Qing. She asked with a fake smile. Why are you asking about her? Don't tell me you still want to bring her back? Zhou Jinyi sneered and gritted her teeth. I can't wait to take that shameless B*TCH's life. If she hadn't bewitched him with false feelings, my husband wouldn't have ended up like this today. I just didn't expect her to be so cold-blooded and heartless. My husband is so sick now, but she abandoned him and ran away. I don't know who she hooked up with again. Sangwan was silent for a moment and sighed softly. That's her nature. How could she be willing to give up her life for nothing? It's a good thing that she left. People like her have their own end. We don't have to care about her. You have to take care of yourself now. Don't be too sad. Since things have come to this, let's do our best and leave the rest to fate. Don't suffer. Sister-in-law. Zhou Jinyi couldn't help but cry again. Jingyi is grateful for your kindness. I just don't accept why my life is so bitter. He finally came back with great difficulty, but he ended up like this. He even said that he wanted to divorce me. Zhou Jinyi suddenly covered her face and cried loudly. Sister-in-law. Sangwan was shocked and hurriedly dismissed everyone. She went forward and patted her gently on the back. He said that in a fit of anger when he was sick. It can't be taken seriously. You can just ignore it. Don't cry, don't cry. The servants will laugh at you if they see you. Sister-in-law. Zhou Jini cried even more sadly. She hugged Sangwon and cried painfully on her body. She cried and complained at the same time. Sangwon didn't hear what she said clearly, but she could feel the pain in her heart. How could Zhou Jini not feel wronged? But she couldn't tell her parents about it. If her parents heard about it, wouldn't they be so angry that they would immediately bring her back home? But she didn't want to go back, so she could only endure it herself. Only when Sangwon was here, she was led by her words and couldn't control it anymore. After a while, Sangwon finally calmed her down. She held her hand and forced a smile. Look at you. You're already an adult and you're crying like this. Who doesn't know that I've wronged you? Zhou Jini sneered and suddenly felt embarrassed. She wiped her tears and said, I'm sorry, sister-in-law. I lost my composure. Sangwon shook her head and sighed with a smile. I understand how you feel. Don't be sad, second young master. Everything will be fine. Zhou Jini nodded her head and looked up fervently. Sister-in-law, my husband will always listen to Big Brother's words. If he insists on divorcing me, can you let Big Brother say a few words for me? Sister-in-law. Sangwon was a little embarrassed, but still nodded. Don't worry, as long as you insist, second uncle and second aunt will listen to you. Zhou Jini returned to her senses and laughed. Yes, I was muddle-headed. I even forgot about this. Her husband was so ill that his life was uncertain. Her parents-in-law would naturally hope that she could stay by his side. How could they let him fool around? She really was muddle-headed. Thinking of this, Zhou Jini felt much better. She sat for a while more before returning to Show Garden. Seeing that it was almost evening, she went to Bailuo Pavilion. Zhou Jini did it herself and brewed the medicine personally. Not long after, Xiao Chui brought dinner over. She said that second young master had to eat first before taking the medicine, so that it wouldn't spoil his appetite. Zhou Jini opened the food box and saw a bowl of black chicken and bamboo fungus soup, a bowl of stewed ham, a plate of fish roe tofu, a plate of stir-fried shrimps and cowpeas, and a bowl of white rice. Watch the fire. I'll bring it in. Zhou Jini closed the lid and took the food box. Seeing that it was him again, Shi Fengming turned his head away unhappily. Husband, it's time to eat. Let me help you sit up. Zhou Jini gently placed the food box on the table and said softly, I'm not hungry. Take it out. Shi Fengming said awkwardly. Zhou Jini didn't get angry. She still reached out to help him up. You should at least sit up and eat. It's time to take the medicine later. I'll bring the food for you to see. If it's not to your liking, I'll ask the kitchen to make something else. I said I'm not hungry. Why are you so annoying? Shi Fengming was annoyed. Zhou Jini stiffened. She held back her grievance and said, If you don't eat, how can your body withstand the medicine later? Husband, do you really hate me that much? Yes. Shi Fengming nodded and said rudely, I hate you. I feel uncomfortable when I see you. Hurry up and get away from me. Go. You. No matter how well-mannered Zhou Jini was, she couldn't stand his unbridled humiliation. Her face turned red and white. She stomped her feet, turned around and ran out. At the door, she almost bumped into Shi Fengjiu. Big brother. Zhou Jini was shocked and hurriedly retreated. She lowered her head, not daring to let Shi Fengjiu see the tears in her eyes. Did second brother make you angry again? Shi Fengjiu took a few steps back and gestured for her to come forward. Zhou Jini thought that he had heard what she said just now. She couldn't care less about her embarrassment and nodded lightly. Then she shook her head. My husband's condition isn't good. Venting his anger might be good for his condition. I shouldn't have been so calculative with him. Shi Fengjiu smiled and suddenly said with a straight face, Sister-in-law, I'll be fair to you. This marriage is our Shi family's fault to begin with. Now that second brother has become like this, you really don't have to accompany him for the rest of your life. After all, you're still young. You should think about your future. Why let your emotions affect your decisions? Listen to what I have to say first. If you're worried that you'll be criticized for being heartless if you leave the Shi family now, you can rest assured. As long as you nod your head, Our family will take care of the rest. Naturally, it's our family who can't bear to delay you and took the initiative to force you to leave. Your dowry and a portion of second brother's assets will be taken away by you. With the Zhou family's wealth, you might be able to find a good husband. Why waste your time? Second brother's temper is very stubborn. Since he doesn't like you, I'm afraid it'll be hard for him to change. Is it worth it for you to do this? Big brother. Zhou Jinyi raised her head. Her clear and bright eyes looked straight at Shifengju. She bowed to him and said seriously, "Thank you, big brother, for thinking about me. I know that big brother's words are for my own good. Since big brother has said it, then I might as well say it out loud. I won't leave my husband. Whether he recovers or not, I won't leave him. I, Zhou Jinyi, will only recognize him as my husband. If he recovers, I'll naturally be happy. If not, I'll stay by his side for the rest of my life. Please, big brother, grant me my wish." Shifengju was silent for a moment and said, "Do you really think so? Or are you too embarrassed to say it in front of me? If you're too embarrassed to say it, then you don't have to say anything. When old Master Zhou and old Mistress Zhou arrive, you can talk to them. I'm sure they'll know what to do for your own good." "Please don't." Zhou Jinyi's face turned pale. She hurriedly said, "Big brother, I beg you, please don't say this to my parents. They'll definitely force me to go back. I won't leave. Big brother, every word I said just now was from the bottom of my heart. I wouldn't dare to lie to the heavens." She felt wronged and resentful. She couldn't help but cry. "Why do all of you want to chase me away? Am I really that detestable? Since you've already married me, why can't you tolerate me?" Shifengju didn't expect her to cry. He was a little embarrassed. He looked around and hurriedly said, "Don't cry. Since you've already made up your mind, then just stay. No one said anything about chasing you away." "Thank you, big brother, for granting me my wish." Crying in front of her brother-in-law wasn't a good thing. Zhou Jinyi wiped her tears and held back her sobs. She bowed to Shifengju. "It's just that," Shifengju sighed softly. "Second brother doesn't have you in his heart. Why do you have to do this? Who knows, maybe he'll find a new love after he recovers and forget about you. Sister-in-law, I shouldn't have said this to you. But this marriage was our Shur family's fault first. I can't bear to see you suffer again. If you take this opportunity to leave, wouldn't it be a happy ending?" Chapter 277. Zhou Jinyi shook her head stubbornly. "Big brother, I know what I want. Please don't try to persuade me anymore. People change, don't they? My husband won't dislike me for the rest of his life. Forgive me for being so bold, but aren't sister-in-law and big brother in harmony now?" Shifengju was slightly startled. He smiled bitterly and said, "This is different. You don't understand my second brother's character." Zhou Jinyi seemed to have smelled something and said eagerly, "Big brother, please teach me. Big brother, you and my husband grew up together. You must know what my husband likes." Zhou Jinyi's face turned red and hot. It sounded ridiculous to ask her brother-in-law about her husband's preferences. She had never dreamed that she would do such a ridiculous thing, but she really had no other choice. Shifengju found it funny. He thought that she was really going all out. He didn't know how his second brother had been brainwashed by Su Qing. Otherwise his head must have been kicked by a donkey. Why would he abandon his good wife? Just when Zhou Jinyi thought that Shifengju wouldn't answer her, and was secretly disappointed, she heard Shifengju cough and say unhurriedly, "My second brother is someone who can be forcefully persuaded, but not cowed. If you let him know how powerful you are, he will naturally submit to you. You should understand what I'm saying, right?" Zhou Jinyi widened her eyes in surprise and couldn't come back to her senses for a moment. What did Big Brother mean? Was he teaching her to be a shrew? Zhou Jinyi couldn't help but be puzzled. She subconsciously thought of Shifengju and Sangwan. She didn't know how her sister-in-law had subdued her big brother. "All right, you go and look after the medicine. I'll go in and talk to him. Give me this lunchbox as well." Shifengju smiled. Zhou Jinyi hurriedly handed the lunchbox to Shifengju. "My husband is still angry with me. Big brother, you should persuade him to eat some." Shifengju thought to himself, he must be starving and waiting for food. Do I still need to persuade him? I don't have the time to persuade him. If he doesn't want to eat, then let him starve to death. Shifengju nodded. Don't worry. Don't come in, lest he gets angry again. I know. Zhou Jinyi hurriedly replied with a smile. Shifengju carried the food box in. Shi Fengming heard the sound of footsteps and slowly turned around. When he saw that it was Shifengju, his eyes lit up. He quickly sat up and complained. Big brother, you're finally here. I'm starving to death. Let me see what's good. Shifengju pulled the table closer to the bed and placed the food box on top of it. He said angrily, since you know you're hungry, why did you chase him out when he brought you food out of kindness? I think you deserve it. Shi Fengming didn't dare to count on Shifengju to serve the dishes for him. He rolled up his sleeves and came over personally. Smelling the fragrant food, Shi Fengming felt even more hungry. He picked up his bowl and ate the prawns with satisfaction before saying, Her? No matter how hungry I am, I can't eat after seeing her. I've never seen such a shameless woman. I told her to leave, but she refused to leave. Big brother, do you think she has other motives? Shifengju was simply speechless. He really didn't know what was in his head to think that way. Oh, tell me, what do you think she's after? Shifengju raised his eyebrows slightly and said faintly. Shifengming's spirits were lifted and he said, what else can it be? Isn't she after the Shi family's wealth? Humph. There's no good woman in this world. They're all money grubbers. If she was still willing to follow me when I was poor, I would be convinced by her. Su Qing, Er's charming face unconsciously flashed across his mind. Shifengming's chest suddenly felt stuffy. The fragrant delicacies in front of him didn't look so delicious anymore. His eyes darkened, and he forced himself to eat a few times before putting his chopsticks down. Shifengju saw everything and said faintly, Is that so? That's not what you said back then. You said that you would be convinced by her if she was still willing to stay by your side when you were terminally ill. Why did you change your mind? I say, Lao Er, you've changed too quickly, haven't you? Become a poor man? That's a little difficult. I can't help you. If you have the ability, you can test it out yourself. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Sister-in-law is willing to tolerate you now because she has you in her heart, not because she's weak and can be bullied by you. If you really break her heart, it'll be too late to salvage the situation. Moreover, the Zhou family doesn't lack money. Old Master Zhou and Madame Zhou dote on her like a pearl. She covets your money? What kind of joke is that? Shi Fengming also felt that his words weren't valid. However, he was unconvinced and said, Who knows what she's thinking? Women's thoughts have always been strange. Who knows what they're thinking? I don't believe that she wouldn't leave if I faked my death and father and mother insisted that she leave. Nonsense, Shifengju said with a cold face. Faked your death? Come back to life after faking your death? Isn't that telling everyone that you did it on purpose? Get rid of these unreliable thoughts. Either you obediently pretend that you're sick and fulfill your promise, or you can just divorce her. You're making such a big fuss over such a small matter. Even if you're not annoyed, I'm annoyed. Shi Fengming didn't dare to say anything after being lectured by him. He secretly glanced at him and couldn't help but say in his heart, You're only talking about me. Aren't you also making a fuss over such a small matter? I heard from my mother that cousin Gu and eldest aunt are still competing with you. If you have the ability to withstand them, I'll be convinced. You're not eating anymore? If you're not eating, hurry up and pack up so I can take it away. Wan Yang is still waiting for me to eat dinner. Shifengju said when he saw that Shi Fengming didn't say anything. Shi Fengming's head felt dizzy and he almost fainted. He glanced at Shifengju with hidden bitterness, and could only put the food back into the food box. Shifengju got up and left with the food box. You should rest. I'll come and see you tomorrow. Big brother, take care, Shi Fengming said unhappily. Thinking about the medicine he was going to take later, he suddenly felt his stomach churn. Big brother. He hurriedly called out to Shifengju and glanced at the door. He smiled and said, That medicine, can you change it? This is too disgusting. You can't. Shifengju turned around and smiled at him. He softly said, This medicine has to be made so that it can pass off as genuine. Otherwise, how can it be hidden from the eyes and ears of others? If this matter is accidentally leaked out, how will our family's reputation be? If the whole household colluded with the ignorant second young master to make a fuss, the Shi family would really become the biggest laughingstock in Qingzhou. But that medicine. Bear with it, Shi Fengju said faintly. If you can't even bear this little bit of hardship, how will you be able to enjoy it? Shi Fengming had nothing to say, and could only silently lie back down on the bed. The medicine had already been brewed, and Zhou Jingyi was waiting to send it in. Seeing Shi Fengju finally come out, she hurriedly went forward to greet him. Thank you, big brother. We're family, there's no need to be so polite. Once the medicine is brewed, bring it in, Shi Fengju said. Zhou Jingyi nodded in agreement. Seeing Shi Fengju leave, she filtered the medicine and brought it into the room. When Shi Fengming smelled the familiar and disgusting medicine, his heart immediately churned with nausea. He frowned and said, Why are you here again? Put it here and go out. Zhou Jingyi's face stiffened, but she still said gently, Husband. Don't call me husband. Shi Fengming frowned and said, Can you not act so virtuous? I feel very uncomfortable just looking at you. I'm not a good husband. You don't have to be like this. Put it down and go out. Hearing this, Zhou Jingyi was secretly delighted. She said gently, I've never blamed you. You're a good husband. Who says you're not? Anyway, whether or not I have the final say. Shi Fengming was so angry that he laughed. He rolled his eyes and said, You're such a strange person. It wasn't easy for your parents to raise you. How can you be so self-deprecating? What good will it do you to pester me? Tell me, what do you want in order for you to leave? As long as you say it, I'll agree to it. Really? Zhou Jingyi sighed softly and said, Then husband, don't waste your efforts. I won't leave. The medicine will turn cold in a while. Hurry and drink it first. Zhou Jingyi held the medicine bowl and blew on it. She leaned over and brought it to his lips. Hurry and drink it. You'll only recover after drinking the medicine. Whatever you want to say, wait until you're better. Recover? Could he recover? Shi Fengming deeply understood what it meant to shoot oneself in the foot. He thought to himself, How can I recover if you don't leave? He tilted his head slightly and said, What if I can't recover? Wouldn't that be a waste? I think you should stop wasting your efforts. No, that won't happen. Zhou Jingyi immediately became anxious when she heard his words. She hurriedly comforted him. You'll definitely recover. Take the medicine properly and you'll definitely recover. Husband, you'll be fine. Shi Fengming felt that he had really lost to her. He couldn't help but feel irritated. He kept a cold face and refused to speak. Zhou Jingyi understood that he had a bad temper when he was sick. Seeing this, she didn't get angry and continued to persuade him gently. Shi Fengming became impatient and simply closed his eyes to let her speak. He pretended to be deaf and mute. Zhou Jingyi saw that her persuasion was useless and was a little annoyed. She gently placed the medicine bowl on the table and raised her voice, Xiao Cui. Shi Fengming was startled. He opened his eyes and looked at her calmly. Second young mistress, is something the matter? Xiao Cui hurriedly walked in. Zhou Jingyi then said, Come over and help me hold down second young master. Don't let him move around. It's time to take the medicine. As she spoke, Zhou Jingyi had already stood up and pressed down on Shi Fengming with both hands. What are you doing? Let go. Shi Fengming struggled angrily. Hurry up and come over. Zhou Jingyi shouted at Xiao Cui with a cold face. Yes. Xiao Cui was a little frightened. She hurriedly went forward and pressed Shi Fengming hard according to Zhou Jingyi's instructions. How dare you? How dare you? Shi Fengming was flustered and exasperated. Use more strength. Zhou Jingyi said coldly, Second young master is willful. Are you going to follow his nonsense? How can you recover if you don't take the medicine? Do you want to be beaten? Xiao Cui decisively made up her mind and used more strength. How dare you? Damn girl, are you tired of living? Shi Fengming wasn't willing to give in so easily and was furious. I'm here. Nothing can be blamed on you. What are you afraid of? Zhou Jingyi said again. Xiao Chui ignored Shi Fengming's shouts and held him down tightly. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.